please.
Lori Kniske.
Here.
Tom Heck.
Here.
Scott Mitchell. Here. Belinda Grassi.
Here.
Jennifer Hart.
Here. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So on behalf of the board, I'd like to welcome all students, staff, parents, and interested community members to tonight's Board of Education meeting. I'd like to remind everyone that this is a meeting of the Board of Education held in public for the purpose of conducting district business. It's not to be considered a public community meeting. There is time for public comment during the meeting in the public participation section on the agenda. Approval of minutes. So I have a motion to approve the May 26, 2022, June 11, 2022, and June 20th, 2022 meeting minutes. Can I get a second? I'll second. Any discussion? Can you call the roll?
Lori Kniske.
Aye.
Tom Heck.
Aye.
Scott Mitchell.
Aye.
Belinda Grassi.
Aye.
Jennifer Hart.
Aye. Motion carried. Any special reports today? No special reports? Great. So that brings us to the discussion of old business. On old business, we start on pass over facilities to you.
Yeah, terrific, thank you. So most of you are aware that as we need to move forward with the facilities with Riverside, with the district overall, we wanted to make sure that the board members all had a sense of what the current facilities look like and to get up to speed. So we actually did 2 tours. A few people in the room actually joined us on those tours. And we started out, the first tour included Parkside, Melridge, and Buckeye. And again, we just wanted to get a sense of what was going on and some of the things that might need to be corrected and really the overall material condition of the buildings. The second tour included Lamouth and the campus. And the tours were led by Rich Arlesic, and who is our maintenance director. And so we were able to ask questions, and pretty much we were able to see everything from from the heating systems to the classrooms to other issues that might be with the buildings. So with that new baseline, what we've asked Mr. Arlesic to do is to give us a prioritized list of issues by building, and he's going to present that at the next Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting, which is on July 18th at 7:30 a.m. It'll likely be over in the boardroom, and we'll take that into consideration. And my partner on the Buildings and Grounds Committee is Mrs. Grassi, and so we'll be receiving that. And then with that information, we plan to then have a work session so that we can kind of take what Mr. Arlesic presents and then work through the different strategies, different thoughts on how we can really make the facilities we have last into the future, and talk about other things we might do to make improvements to the district. So that is our way forward. I know many people are interested. We obviously had the ballot on May 2nd. So that is our way forward. I think it's a smart way to move, where there is no rush, but we understand people in the community want to see action, but we need to do it in a deliberate and methodical way so that we can do what's best for Riverside and spend taxpayer dollars in the most efficient and effective way possible. So I don't know, Mrs. Krasinski, is there anything else that you would add?
No. Do we want to talk about maybe sending out a doodle poll to see when we can do a work session, or could everyone commit to a work session before the next board meeting to start with some planning? Is that?
Yeah, so I think a doodle poll would be, we were not very successful in trying to schedule meetings during this meeting.
Yeah.
Yes, so, but the Buildings and Grounds meeting is on the 18th, so probably later than that. Is there anybody who's out of pocket the second half of July?
We only have a week before the board meeting. Is it only a week?
Yeah, it's only a week. I mean, our board meeting is on the 28th, but the buildings and grounds meeting is the 19th, so I'm not exactly sure.
Do we put a work session
What day is your
before?
buildings and grounds?
It's the 18th, which I'm not, I think it's a Tuesday.
It's a Monday.
It's a month, okay.
So we have the rest of that week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, following.
So, I would say this, that, is there, I mean, definitely, I can't remember why we typically have the buildings and grounds earlier in the month, but I think that we had a conflict with people being out of pocket.
It would make sense to allow our administration to have some time to pull that prioritized list together and put that information together, so I'm fine with it staying on the 18th. I mean, I'm not sure if you want to move the work session and push it into early August,
I think
after our
that,
board meeting, so that we can actually present the information to the board and then have a work session.
so kind of working off the fly, I agree with you that it'd be nice to have it before the next meeting, but I don't think it's a requirement. And maybe we could spend some time at our July meeting with Rich giving us just a presentation on some of the high points of things that need to be done, so that we can help get the public up to speed as to what's going on with the buildings. If that would work.
Mr. Hack, I will be out of the state the 26th, 27th, and 28th of July for my daughter's wedding, which will be the board meeting.
Okay, well, we can talk about, we'll have that list before then, and so
Yes.
we can substitute for you and just talk about some of the things that are going on. If that works, then we can aim for early August for our
Work
work session.
So give an update at the 28th meeting on what you learned, and then try to do a work session in early August.
Does that work? Does that make sense?
I think time's of the essence, but we want to go another month and a half before we really talk about nuts and bolts, and I'll go along with that, but I think it's an unnecessary delay. I say that because we've been working with Mr. Weiss going through Riverside. We've completed Riverside inventorying every single room. We did not do the offices. But what we're doing is counting all the ceiling tiles, outlets, light fixtures, bulbs, and everything else in the room, and even in the hallways. So what we're doing is compiling a pretty comprehensive list of what we have. And I know that Mr. Arlesic, through the tours and other discussions we've had and things that he knows, is putting together a list, and that's going to be very helpful, of course. I think that we need to hire an owner's agent, owner's representative, to start from day one in this process. And it's probably unrealistic to have that at our work session, but it might not be a bad idea to start interviewing people so we can incorporate that person. They will be working very closely with everyone, especially Mr. Arlesic. The importance of that is so that we can be organized and effective and efficient with every dollar we spend, and having that person start at the very beginning in the planning process, I think, is very important. At least that's been my experience in my construction. And so in going through the buildings, I think that there's some low-hanging fruit that we could start to move forward on if the board would agree. And that low-hanging fruit would be windows. A good number of the windows in this building do not function properly. We've even had an injury to a student because a window fell on their fingertips with blood all over the floor. That was a disconcerting event. I think that's something we want to try and stay away from. I think we want to have the best work environment we can for the teachers, staff, and administration, and certainly the best learning environment for the students, and that's what we're here for. So I would say that with the cash on hand that we have, we could look at ordering windows and putting out a bid for labor only to replace all the windows in Riverside, John R., and possibly Melridge and Buckeye. I estimate that would probably cost about $1.6 million. So anyway, I'm just putting some of these thoughts out there, a little bit of building information, and I think that delays do not help anybody. But if that's what has to happen, of course, I'll go along with that. But I think that we would really want to look at getting an owner's agent going and possibly getting the windows going.
Yeah, so I guess my concern is that security is one of the number one things we heard from the community, the staff, and everybody here. And I don't think we have a good handle on what we want to do as far as security. So I think that's where us having a working session, taking a look at the strategic plan and all the input from the community, the administration, the staff, parents, and figuring out where we want to focus first. So putting windows in is great, but at the same point, we got to figure out what windows. We don't have that information. We haven't got a review of what we can do to help make sure these schools are secure or where we want to start.
So what windows would be just about every window in these buildings?
I get it, but I guess we don't know what we're looking for yet, is my point.
I think we do. I mean, I've had Cleveland Construction out and gotten some advice from one of their representatives, and they said it had another person out that we spent some time with and got some information from them that they just completed the school project, an updating project. And so I think we have a lot of information if one is familiar with construction. We're looking at Energy Star windows. You can't get a better rated window than that. And these are windows. So replacing windows is, like I said, low-hanging fruit. And looking at the sally ports, the entryways, to have them safe. At Lemoore here, Melridge and Buckeye, certainly that's going to take a lot more planning than just buying and ordering windows and having someone take them out and put them in. So the safety issues that we're talking about is going to take a comprehensive plan, but the windows wouldn't. That would be really simple and easy to do.
But I guess my point is, why would we put in windows if we do a safety consult later that told us we need different windows? So that's what I'm saying, there's got to be a long-term,
I'm
larger
trying to
plan.
explain it to you. The Energy Star windows, you can't get better than that.
So I don't feel this board is having an opportunity to explore the options and to explore the priority list that the administration is going to put forward. I believe 6 weeks is sufficient time for them to put this information together for us to have a work session, because then we can actually have conversation as a board. We can't make decisions based on one person's opinion. We have to make a decision based on the board having full disclosure and full information on all kinds of things, and we haven't done that yet. And so probably talking about windows is premature. That's a bid process. That's a lot of money. We have to hire architects. Like, that stuff has to go out to bid. And I don't think as a board we've even discussed, hey, that's the first thing we want to do. I don't necessarily know that everybody feels that way. So, like, allowing the Buildings and Grounds Committee to get the information and then disseminating that to the board and having some conversation at our next meeting, I think is appropriate. And then having a work session, at least from my perspective, early August. Seems to make the most sense to me.
And I would concur, but I also concur with something that Mr. Mitchell said, that just as we did with the building of the schools, we had an owner's representative, and I think that I don't think we can get that done before our work session, but I think having an owner's representative as part of the equation would make a lot of sense. And Mr. Arlesic, he already has a full-time job, and so, trying to add different initiatives that we would come to consensus on top of his work, this is not practical. So we really do need kind of in my opinion, we need an owner's representative and maybe really a project manager or something like that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So an owner's representative, I mean, they're like a liaison between an architect and the board. But that would be like saying we want to engage an architect to assist us with this process, and I don't have a problem with that. I agree, we probably need some outside consultation. Experts, they're beneficial to have. I just don't know if that's what we normally refer to as an owner's agent.
So
Just having a consultant, I think, would be
Let me add to
appropriate.
that they're not just a liaison between the architect and the board. They are intimately involved in the project, vetting contractors, subcontractors, and everything that's going on in the project. So they're intimately involved if they're doing their job. If they're just a liaison between the board and the architect, then we're not getting what we should get from an owner's agent or representative.
I think we can have those conversations and again, figure out what we want to engage as a consultant, what kind of qualifications we'd have to put out an RFP for that.
I even think it's all premature because we haven't decided in any kind of way what direction we're moving in with the buildings yet.
Right.
I think we need to have that, we need to get the buildings around on the 18th and get that list from Rich and everything else before we do any of those things. We're not there.
Right, no,
At all.
I definitely agree, just putting some spaghetti on the wall and seeing what sticks, but I do think that it's something along those lines of hiring a project manager or construction project manager or something along those lines, something in this general ballpark of what we're discussing would behoove us ultimately in ensuring that we end up with the improvements that we wanted for the prices that we agreed to pay.
And
I
ideally.
think once we decide what those improvements
That's
are.
absolutely right.
Right.
And ideally, that person would be involved even when Mr. Harlesic puts forth his list. Now, it's going to be a little too fast and too soon for that to happen. But putting out a notice for bid, if you will, a bid isn't really the right way to go. Because the only way you can hire someone like that, in my opinion, is to interview people to see what they can offer. And a person that can offer involvement from the very beginning to all the way to the completion, I think is what's most valuable and important. But if we take this one step at a time and delay each thing for each item that we do, we're definitely going to take an extra year to do this process. If that's what the board deems it wants to do, okay. I'm just looking at, there's some things we could do right now if we wanted to as a board.
Mr. Hunt, you said we used an owner's agent previously?
Right. We
At one time?
did. We did. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but we had,
It was David Riley, he was more of a legal quasi-owner's representative type of individual. The thing about owner's representative, owner's agent, there's a whole different scope. I mean, it's kind of undefined, so you can have it as intense or, you kind of up to the district.
right, roll up his sleeves or just.
How detailed and how much it is. And, typically we would do a request for qualification process like we do for an architect, and you pick the most qualified firm or individual, and you negotiate a contract with them. Once that, if you are able to negotiate a contract, then you go to the second most qualified and put in a request for qualification.
Right, and typically they're right now about $160 to $165 an hour. And that's what the typical pay is for a person that's going to be involved in the project. Again, having someone involved would be important. One small example is vetting the contractors and subcontractors that would be doing the work is important. And the one small item is the roofing contractor that did the new buildings is located in Indiana. And when we recently had a problem and needed repairs on the work that they had performed, we had to spend about $2,600 to pay someone locally because you certainly can't communicate with someone in Indiana when that happens. So you would eliminate things like that.
When you put the bid out, the request for qualification process, how long does that stay open for people to put in their?
Usually it's 2-3 weeks to a month, approximately. I know when we did architects, we've done between 3 to 4 weeks.
And then we did interviews.
You interview whoever puts in the proposal to kind of see what the qualifications are and be comfortable with.
And again, an owner's agent would do the work for us because none of the board members is going to vet the contractors and subcontractors. I don't think you're going to. I don't think Superintendent Kalis is going to do that. We need someone representing us that can do all of that work to make sure we have the best possible process.
So again, it's not that we could get an owner's agent handy for the next building and grounds committee meeting when we start talking about the list that is brought to us and kind of the steps forward. So is this something that, I don't know where the board stands, do we want to talk about putting that request out, or what are we thinking?
Well, what I would say is, as someone like that catching up on what Mr. Harlesic will put forward, what our discussions are, would be pretty quick and easy. So just putting something out now so that we can get someone hired would be a good first step, such that when we lay out our plans of what we want to do, we have someone involved that can start us in organizing, planning the project. Because then we're going to have to put out a bid. Of course, we're going to have an engineer and an architect involved in that, and this owner's agent would be involved in every step of the way with them. So they would have relationship, they would have the knowledge of how to relate with the engineer and architect.
I just have one issue with that, though. We, as a board, would have to come up with a list of what it is we're actually looking for, and we can't do that, like, for tomorrow. Like that, right? That is not something that we're ready to put forth in a document, to put out in a request for proposal, because we would have to tell them what we want them to be qualified in. And we haven't had those conversations yet, so I'm not exactly sure, like, what we would be putting in an RFQ if we can't
No, agreed. that
reiterate that.
We wouldn't have a comprehensive list, my goodness, we might be meeting 3, 4, 5, 6 times to have the complete list of what we want to do. Superintendent Kalis said he'd like to have the 8th grade over at Lamouth, so that's going to be an option. Do we build a wing over there? Do we add classrooms on John R.? Do we add classrooms on Riverside, or do we build something over there? We're not going to do this in one sitting. It's going to take many, many iterations just to get to where we have something we want to execute. So certainly, no, it's going to take time.
No. I guess what I'm saying is, in order to have an RFQ, to have this owner's agent, we have to put together a list of what it is that we want this person to be qualified to
Yeah, so
do.
I just, let me.
Yeah, they're going to know the whole process. Yeah, it's not like it's items that they would need to know. They're going to know everything.
Can I want to just do one thing?
Sure.
I think you mentioned that we might have to consider moving to 8th grade over. I don't think you said that's what you want to do, right?
Well, there's a couple of different options. I mean, over the course of many years that I've served Riverside Public Schools, we'll always hear the fact that it'd be great to get the 8th graders back in their grade band, which would be middle school. And if that's the particular case, it might keep us from having to add on a major section of Riverside to get a whole grade out. I mean, you're talking 350 kids. But that's one of the options. But then it poses some other problems too that we have to consider. If you're moving the grade, 8th grade over to Lamouth, anyone that has had children over at Lamouth that arrival and dismissal know that that's geographically, it's not the best place for an ingress and egress of cars and dropping off and, arrival and dismissal. So there's some things we have to do. Considering, I think everyone agrees that we're going to keep Lamouth no matter what in the near future. I mean, that was even part of the first, last phase of our facility plan. But now I know things have changed, but we know it's going to be there. And there are some changes that we need to make over there anyway. So looking at it long term, yeah, I really think we need to consider that as maybe one of the options. If you ask my opinion.
So, if I may chime in, these are all good discussion points and important information. I certainly appreciate your wanting to move forward as quickly as possible. I think that from my own personal perspective, I think that I wouldn't regard it as delay. I would regard it as a methodical way forward. And I do believe we need somebody on board who can serve in some sort of capacity, as we've already discussed. But that's not, in my opinion, we don't need to do that before the work session. But I think that with the information we get from Mr. Arlesic, that at least we'll have some scoping of what's going on, and that we can, but we should definitely, not long after that, I don't know what long is, but I think that we should be gearing ourselves that as quickly as possible after that work session to move forward with that person. And then, frankly, if we're going to hire that person and look at their expertise, obviously we're going to hire them because we believe that they have the best qualifications. Then, we need to figure out the priorities, but we also need to listen to him or her for that expertise.
Right, and in the meantime, maybe what I could do is contact a couple of people that I know that have been involved in that sort of thing and bring some kind of a template of a contract of something that we would be looking at, so at least.
That's usually something that we have Mr. Platko do. It's not usually an individual board member that starts looking at contracts and doing those kind of things. So I think that if we're going to do that, that's a Mr. Platko or a Dr. Kalis role.
No, that's great. Yeah, you can do that, and maybe I could bring a separate copy to, just give some information. So, the importance of the knowledge involved in what we're doing, I think, is vital, and it will help to ensure success at the end of the project. So, Ms. Blanco, certainly if you want to look for contracts in that regard, do you know what you would be looking at?
I would, I can get some requests for qualifications that have been put out by other school districts and kind of compare and contrast what they were asking those and see what our options are and go from there.
Okay, maybe we could collaborate just a little bit, a little input might help and refine that. This way, as a board, we won't have to maybe have an additional meeting to refine something like that. It might be more ready to go.
So what I'm hearing right now, I'm sure Lester will bring the list to the next Buildings and Ground Committee, that is for sure. And then we will look to set up a work session soon after our July board meeting. We don't want to attach it to the July board meeting, I'm hearing that it's too early.
I think that I would envision that being, probably a several-hour conversation.
So update and then.
Yeah, so I think a separate work session we're all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. To go into that discussion would be better than trying to tack it on to a meeting day.
Can somebody put out a doodle poll for us?
Would you like me to put it in a doodle poll again?
Thank you, Ms.
You
Harden.
seem to be the expert at that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's very difficult, but I'll get on that. I love it. Yeah, I use it a lot, yeah.
Right.
We want we're looking at, we want early to mid-August, those first 2 weeks, to try to get dates?
Yep, please.
Okay.
All right, the next thing that we had on here, and two previous, it was a school board handbook update. So in two previous meetings, we talked about having assistance from the OSBA to help us pull together a school board handbook. You know, we've had a lot of discussions here at the table about expectations, board ethics, things like that. And that's really what this will help capture that also. It's at one place for us, and anybody in the community will be able to take a look at it if they have questions. So in today's, and everybody seemed in favor of it, so in today's finance, it's in finance, was where I saw it, right? In finance consent agenda, there is the contract from the OSBA. So I just wanted to let everybody know that's out there. And then the next steps would be, I think we agreed that Mr. Hack and Ms. Harden would work together because of the policy committee on trying to help pull that together.
Now, did you say contact or contract?
The contract for the services is in the, yeah, in the,
Thank you.
yes. No
And,
problem.
and how much was that?
It was 3,000.
2,100, I think it was, is item M on
And then, is it better to have one drawn up from scratch, or is there an opportunity with the hundreds of school boards in Ohio to spend a couple $100s to copy one that someone else already has?
Yeah, so they will give you a blank copy if you wanted to, and you can pull it together yourself. But what they will do is they will go through all the policy we have. They will pull it together for us, which one of the things sometimes we have trouble doing, finding time to sit down and consult and work together, right? So that's why my suggestion was to have the OSBA do it, because they've done it for other schools. They know what they're doing.
Okay, so what you're saying is we have a lot of different policies than other school boards in the state?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying there's a lot of policy. So
Okay.
what they will help us do is go through all that policy and pull in what's needed in regards to how the board would run.
And they charge $3,100 for that?
That's what the contract says. And we, you know, again, I proposed this a couple board meetings ago also with approximate cost. So, but that is what was out there.
And part of what they do is it, my understanding is part of what they do is they will actually facilitate and ask questions of the
Conversation.
boards.
They will.
You know, like find out what it is that they want to have as your own board practices and whatever. That's not really listed in policies.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
So for instance, we had a
They
discussion here at the
facilitate
table,
all
right, saying that our expectation is anything old or new business, our expectation of each other is to give it prior to the meeting, right? So that's things like they'll pull into the book for us.
And that's not things that are actually in board policy.
Correct.
They're just standard operating practices for us as a board and how we would like to operate. And they're good facilitators. They've done things for us before. And
Yes. Any questions? I just wanted to give an update so everybody was aware that it is in the agenda today. The other thing was setting school board objectives. So we now have our 5-year strategic plan. We talked, provided a couple different examples of how we can set objectives for ourselves so that we can evaluate our performance. You know, are we meeting the standards that we set in place, and are we doing what we're supposed to as a board? So I just wanted to put out, we need to set a working session because it should be a public meeting where we can go ahead and establish what that would look like. Any thoughts, questions on that? I think at last meeting I gave an example of a generic one that I found.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again? I'm not sure I fully ascertained it.
The school board, remember we talked about school board evaluation,
Okay, right, we
right?
did.
So right now is the time when we would set the objectives so that at the end of the year when we're doing Dr. Kalis's and Mr. Placco's evaluations, we can sit down and talk about our evaluation and say, did we do what we thought we would do? So we just need a working session to do that. Should we try to attach it or?
Do you want to just put it for September, and I'll do a separate poll for that one? So we just have one each month. In the
Is that
past, we
okay?
used to just try to have one work session a month,
That's fine.
different items. All right.
Yep, it makes
I'll
sense.
add that into them.
Right.
it's too.
I don't believe there was any other old business presented, correct? All right. So that brings us to new business. I threw out there that we probably should have some beginning discussion for House Bill 99 that Governor DeWine signed recently. You've been hearing a little bit about it on the news and what other school districts are starting to do with House Bill 99 in regards to teachers can carry guns. So I wanted to throw that out here just to start a conversation with all of us here at the table because I think it's important that we need something we need to address. Mr. McIntyre provided some, I was reading through House Bill 99, there's a lot of stuff in there. So I asked Mr. McIntyre and I sent that out to the entire board, a summary of some points. I did email that to everybody. So I don't know if there's any questions, initial discussion. I mean, again, I don't think that's a decision we're gonna make here today at this table, but I think we have to figure out what are we doing and we need to let the public know.
Right, I would tend to agree, so, I mean, I don't know that we have far more work sessions than we have board meetings, but it just seems to me that we should have a meeting with that as a single focus.
I think there's a lot there.
Yeah, so again, as busy as we get over the summers, I'm not sure how else to address it effectively. I mean, conceptually, we could try to do both that initial work session on the facilities and represent, have an hour for 99, House Bill 99, and then go from there. I don't know, that would likely be at least a 3-hour meeting. I don't know if people are up for that, although that's typically how long our regular meetings are.
Let me make sure I'm perfectly understanding House Bill 99 as it sits right now. Board policy will say that unless, like, the board has to make a decision to allow that in order for that to move forward. So right now, we have not done that, so that will not be happening right in this district at this time until we actually have a conversation and decide to put a resolution on the table. I'm going to just go on record right now as saying I am not in favor of it, and so like having a work session probably will not change my mind. So I don't even know if there's not enough people that are even in favor of it to begin with to even consider having a resolution on the table for that. I don't even know if it's worth having a work session. So I'm just going to start that conversation and just put it out there. There's probably never an instance where I would ever think that would be appropriate. And if that ever happened in my school district and my kids were still in school, I'd be taking them out of my school the next day.
So do we want to get expert opinions before we make our decisions, or like
that is just a personal decision on that. I don't think that
I'm just suggesting that maybe we want to have.
and you can, but again, that
Well, I
will
think-
always be my answer.
Right, and I mean, I'm the same way. There's not a world where I would ever agree, ever, regardless of what. I've read plenty of articles too as soon as I saw this coming out, and there's not a world where I'll ever agree. So it all depends on what everyone else says, but if,
I mean, we can have as many work sessions as we want again.
yeah, well, no, I cannot.
I would certainly be in favor of having a work session to discuss it, and certainly, I understand where everybody's coming from, but I think that we all need to have open minds, and maybe you won't be swayed, but I think that it would only be prudent for us to at least evaluate it, and see what, where it might take us. So I definitely think that it will behoove us to have the conversation.
Yeah, I know that there could be times when we absolutely believe something, and when we get other information we were not aware of in the past, sometimes it can change our thoughts and ideas, and I think the experts are the ones that would be able to give us that information. Namely, we have a sheriff's department right here, and there are also security experts that could give some thoughts and ideas as to why it would be helpful or why it would not be helpful. It's possible that the state legislature and the governor made a huge mistake and it would make people more at risk, but I would doubt that that would be the case at that level. I think that they probably had input that moved them in that direction from security experts, and I'd like to hear what some of that information is before I make a decision.
So I agree, I'm open to a work session too. I think just to learn more and to understand, I think though we should tell them what we want to understand so that we can make plans. So I know I personally would want to hear how do our teachers feel, right? I don't know what our staff thinks. And I think that's important. I think we need to hear what they're saying.
I've put some feelers out. In terms of school administrators, I don't think we're in favor of it at all. There's just so much other potential that could occur by having people carry guns. I mean, on a somewhat of a regular basis with 2,000 kids in a school, we do break up fights. We restrain, sometimes we only challenge kids. Sometimes teachers have medical episodes. Some people are careful. I have talked to representatives from the Sheriff's Department, and by no means what I'm going to say is their answer. But I believe that they will give their answer to anyone who asks. And from my discussions with some of the higher ups over there, I don't believe they are either, but I'm just telling you, that's through some conversations we've had about security going into the next year, dealing with the extra SRO and what we can do to shore up some of the security that we've been talking about. Talked to the union president. There's probably a few members, she said, that are in favor of it, but majority is not in favor of it. But again, I'm not speaking for them either, I'm just telling you what I'm hearing. And that's all I know right now. I know that the board was going to talk about it and toss it around. I do know some districts already put out notice that they are not doing that already.
Chardon, I think I said, I think the city of Cleveland came out immediately and said no. I don't know, did you hear other districts that are saying no?
I just feel them around here.
Okay.
So I would say that there are a number of school districts that have experience with it. And so what would be helpful in our discussion is to find out what these other districts that do have the policy in place, what they've experienced and how it works. It is strictly, so I understand all the feedback. It's a voluntary program. And I think that that it is worth having the conversation because deterrence is a useful thing, and there are many ways of trying to help and ensure that we have a safe environment that we're in. So I think that it is prudent for us to at least have the conversation. If the consensus is that we don't go that direction, then that's the consensus. But I think that it is, I believe it's our obligation to get more facts than to go in with just our initial thoughts, including me. I need to be an open mind as well.
I think one of the points of discussion also should be, even if we're considering that, maybe trying to get an SRO in each of our buildings and have that officer with the availability of a higher capacity to, should an awful situation occur. We have less buildings than we've had in the past. We're going to have a couple SROs. We have one now. We're going to get another one. We have someone with a deputy sheriff. a deputy at Lamouth. Maybe that's the way to go. It's just to put I know that there's some difficulty right now in hiring one SRO, extra one that we're going to have for our district next year. But maybe in terms of planning, maybe that's a better alternative. Having someone who's been through a lot of training, someone that can react in a poised way if something should happen. Here at the campus, we have 2,000 kids. I'd hate to see, heaven forbid anything ever happened, and I don't know how people are going to react to it, but no more than 24 hours of training needed. I'm not so sure if that's the right way to go.
Right.
Well, let me ask you a question on the 24 hours of training. Have you thought about what it takes to get 24 hours of training?
Well, I think the police have like 600, I think I read. something
Right,
like
so, but have you thought about what 24 hours is? I mean, that's an hour out of someone's life every week, and driving to a place and driving back, so it's a lot more than an hour. And that would take a full half a year if they did every single week. And, I mean, that's a long time. It's not like 24 hours, oh, it's a day and they're trained and they can carry a gun.
that. I'm not convinced though, because, like I said, we have 2,000 kids running around here. Like I said, I leave it to the experts.
So
the
maybe at the
SROs.
work session, these are thoughts and ideas we can discuss. There's probably not, we're probably not gonna solve that right here.
Yeah, so but I guess what I'm asking is we need to let, like, again, if we can get something, Hannah maybe to come in, or somebody to come in from the teacher's perspective, I think we need to hear from our parents. I mean, safety was something that they talked about, you know, in our strategic planning. So what does that mean and what does that look like to them, right?
You
So,
want me to see also what it looks like for the SROs,
Yeah.
or even maybe even consider that at all? I don't know if it's a possibility for this upcoming year, and like I said, I know they're having difficulty even hiring men right now, but maybe put it out there and see what it looked like.
So, Ms. Krasinski, are you saying that it's important that the parents would know what we're doing?
I'm saying that I think I want to understand how they're feeling. So I mean,
So they should know?
They should have some input.
absolutely. And if we would decide to, we have to send out notification. That's part of the rate, that what the House bill says too.
Okay. And we
So-
would email them in that regard?
I
Or how-
believe
how would we
they
com-
should have some input in the entire.
That's what I'm
How would we communicate with the parents? Would we put a notice on the door? Would we
Well,
email them?
Yeah, I don't think we're there yet. I guess what I'm saying is as we plan for the strategic plan and so forth, parents said security was something they were interested in. Staff said security is something they're interested in. I don't know that this is the security that they're interested in. That's what I want to learn.
Yeah.
So what I'm
Well-
asking is, I would love to see parents come in
I
and
agree
talk
with
to
you.
us.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how we
Well,
communicate.
I would leave that up to the administration to help us try to figure out how do we get them in. And we hear from them, and, you know, it would be great to get a lot of different perspectives, so we can try to learn something. I've spoke to people myself, and I've heard against, I've heard for, I've spoke to police officers who, you know, think it's a very bad idea. I've spoke to people that think it's a good idea. So it's a very mixed bag, I guess I want to learn. So is there anything now,
Very
or would you
serious
guys,
issue.
it varied, and there's a lot of emotions around it.
Definitely.
So would you guys be okay to say, let's tell Dr. Kalis, send an email to Dr. Kalis with any questions, anything that we would want, that we can try to figure out how to bring that to the meeting?
When are we proposing to have this meeting? Lori, I'm just asking, are we wrapping it into one of these other work sessions? Are we having another meeting? Like, I mean, I don't care, we can have two meetings in early August. I don't think we should,
Yeah.
I know
I'm thinking we
parents,
need
I
to
think
have-
parents want to know where is this district going to stand on that issue? And I think delaying that as a process is even almost more important than
Especially
figuring out
before
what we're
school
doing with
starts.
facilities.
Yeah, I mean, before school starts, I think people are going to want to know, yeah. I'll throw it out again. It's easier to get us together before a board meeting sometimes. Is there any possibility we could do this within an hour before the next school board meeting?
I think we can get a lot of information in an hour.
I agree. If we say what we're looking for, so we need to tell them what
Right.
we're looking for.
Right.
Yeah, I'd be open to meeting before the July 28th meeting.
Mr. Flacco, Dr. Kalis, you guys okay with that?
I'm good with it. Do you want to do 6 o'clock, or 5:30?
6 o'clock, I think, or do you think earlier, anybody?
Since
I would
we're-
almost say 5:30, because if we're going to ask the community to come in, if they're going to know that we're going to be having this conversation, you may have some very vocal people who would like to have an opportunity to say whatever it is they want to say.
So we'll have to talk about how we want to plan that, because it might not be considered a work session if we had public participation.
All right, we can
So
do
we'll
special
talk.
meetings, public
Okay.
participation. That's how we want to do it.
Yeah, yeah. And
Mr.
definitely,
Fishel,
Yes, I'm fine with it.
5:30?
Yes, I'm fine with it.
Ms. Harden?
Yep, I just put it to my calendar.
All right.
Gary, you'll send out an updated notification.
Yeah.
That's July 20.
Hey,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but you were asking, was it 20? Wait.
I wasn't asking, but I'm just making sure.
Yeah.
All right, anything else on that topic? we're making our way through new business. So the next thing I did put out there that I'd just like to bring up the subject of responsive classroom. Mr. Frischel, I know that you have presented in a committee meeting, in a board meeting here with us, and then recently I listened to a podcast that represented very negative views on what we're doing as far as responsive learning. So just to bring everybody up to date, I did again send an email. Responsive classroom was approved by the board in early 2020, so I should say the prior board, because Mr. Frischel was not on at the time. In 2020-2021, responsive classroom training was provided to instructional coaches, K-8 teachers, and high school special ed. And at this time, they've been applying what they're learning. So again, this is professional development, it's not curriculum, so I just want to make sure we're really all clear on that. And they've been applying what they're learning. I did reach out, I was asking some questions, how are things going? A lot of favorable comments on how the kids are reacting to responsive classroom. But I know that, again, you have concerns, so I guess we've heard about it a couple times. I just want to ask, what is your ask? So I want to go and put this to bed.
Yeah, I think that I talked with Mr. Hack about this, and we discussed maybe setting up a work session. Now we're lining up work sessions. I would just make a note that 15 states have now made it illegal. And
I want to be clear, though, did they make this responsive classroom? Did they make
well, it's
social
not
emotional
responsive
learning? Or did they
classroom.
make...
It's not responsive classroom by name. It's the social emotional learning tenets along with the CRT tenets. And these things in the bills and the legislation are not named by name. It is the subject matter that is being presented and taught that is made illegal. And so certainly anyone can do their research. Montana, Iowa, Florida, Utah, Idaho, North Dakota, Texas, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Virginia, South Carolina, Georgia, New Hampshire, Mississippi, and Alabama can look at their laws to see what they actually say. And 19 other states are working on similar language to make it illegal. So I think if we have 2/3 of our states making it illegal, we need to take a serious look at removing it.
So your ask then is for us to remove it?
Well,
As
if we're not going to
professional
have a
development.
work session, I'll make a resolution. If we're going to have a
No,
work
but
session, we can discuss.
I guess I'm trying to ask, that's what you're asking us, right? Is that you would like to see us
That's where I
remove
would
it?
move to, yes.
Great.
So let me make sure I'm understanding. You want us to remove responsive classroom as professional development for our teachers and staff. I'm just asking as
The whole responsive classroom curriculum would be removed.
It's
came in-
professional development for
it-
teachers,
It came in
so-
through curriculum, and it is curriculum, and
But-
that's how it entered the
it's-
school.
but
as
it's
a
not
curriculum.
curriculum.
it's not curriculum.
It's not
That's what I'm
curriculum.
asking. It's
So
professional
development.
I
development.
have some background information. I think we'll probably end up at a work session, I
Thank you.
suspected. So I brought some information. It is not a curriculum. The curriculum implies that there's a set of standards that we're teaching to children. We are not doing that. This was professional development that was provided to teachers to help them get better at their craft. And we do that all the time with teachers. So I have some information here that you can take a look at. Who remembers this?
Yeah, just
And you
just
do
as a
have-
note, I looked at the training manual for the teachers, and responsive classroom asks that the teachers spend 50% of their time doing this program.
Mr. Fischel, I'm going to very respectfully, I looked also, it says the responsive classroom states that social emotional learning and teaching kids those tenets are as important as academics, but I did not, so if you could show me where it says 50% of the time needs to be spent, that would be helpful to me, because we don't do that. We don't spend 50% of our time on social emotional learning, but I couldn't find that. And I know that you have said that before.
Yeah, so when someone says it's as important, is that equal to, less, or greater than?
So I guess that's your interpretation, that's not mine.
So as important is not equal to?
When you're dividing time up, no.
Well,
I
I'm
don't
asking you, as
think
important
it
is
means
not
equal amount
equal
of
to.
time.
Okay, I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, and if you look at a schedule in an elementary or a middle school or a high school, there's not time carved out that is equal to academics by any means.
I understand that.
Mr. Hack, you have
Certainly.
sat on the programs committee for years. I think you know that academics are extremely important to me. and to this district, and we're not spending 50% of our time on social emotional learning.
And
That's
I
not
didn't
happening.
say we are spending 50% of our time. I said in the manual, it asks that it's as important as academics. So it asks for equal time. And I didn't say we were spending that amount of time with a brand new program. Normally you would grow into that. So certainly at the outset it wouldn't be 50%, and that should be understood by everybody. So it's not 50% right now, but the teacher's manual the training manual certainly says it's as important as academics.
Yes, and there is much research out there that shows that supporting students' social emotional growth is imperative for them to be able to learn. I did not provide that research, but I certainly can to the board if you are interested in how student engagement affects student performance and achievement. That is a hugely researched area, and absolutely I could provide that to you. I did not. All I put in there was addressing some of the concerns that I have heard, maybe some of the information that has been shared that's not entirely accurate. I did the overview of the elementary and the middle school program, so you'll see what Mr. Fischel is referring to, where they say it's as important. I don't necessarily disagree with that. And then I included the article that you gave to us at the programs meeting about superintendents indicating that teachers are leaving the profession, and to lose one would be detrimental. It's just people are leaving as fast as they can. The article goes on to say, however, that part of what teachers want to get back to is building relationships for students. And so if we allow them to do that and create those relationships where students can learn and to grow, we're not teaching that one group is better than another. We're not playing white privilege bingo. We're not doing that here. The beauty of local control of schools is that we get to use a program that will help professional development for our teachers, that will help them get better at their craft, and make sure that we implement it as best as we see fit in Riverside Local School District. Not how Paintsville City does it, not how Shaker Heights does it, not how South Euclid-Lyndhurst does it, but how Riverside sees it best to be implemented so that we can support the growth and development of our students.
And so thank you for that explanation, and I would add that Responsive Classroom, if you go on their website, is loaded with the word equity. I think it's 20 times in the first 3 pages of their website, and they're all about creating equity. Now, do we understand what equity means? It doesn't mean equitable. Equity means the same outcome for everybody.
It does not mean that to me.
Yeah.
And so
Okay,
when
so
you say we,
what does that mean to
when you
you?
say we may not have the same understanding. So you know what I mean? So that is something perhaps for the board to discuss, what that means to Riverside Local School District. Because as an educator, I have an understanding. I don't believe any child should ever be made to feel less than any other child, ever. I don't care who you are. Every child should be lifted up of their own values and attributes and be able to succeed as best they can, no matter where they come from, who they are, or what background they have. That's the goal that I have for all of our students here. So when we talk about what does equity mean, I don't dive that deep into it because I know my core beliefs are every child should be lifted up, each individual child and be able to perform to the best of their abilities. And what we can do as teachers and educators to do that, that's what we should be doing.
So thank you for that. And so when Responsive Classroom from Castle Select says equity time after time after time on their website, you don't fully understand what they mean by equity?
No, that's not correct. So I would prefer that you, no, that's not correct.
So
But Castle doesn't publish Responsive Classroom. They provided an endorsement of the program, much like ODE has endorsed Riverside High School, and we hang their banners in our cafeteria. World News has given us accolades, and we've hung those banners. So companies, organizations endorse programs all the time. Castle is not a parent company of Center for Responsive Schools, and they don't publish this Responsive Classroom.
Let me, if I may just jump in. So I previously have been on the curriculum committee for for several terms, probably 5 or 6 years or more even. And I certainly understand your focus and your commitment to academics in Riverside, and I would also recognize that there are elements in other schools that are not elements of SEL that are in other schools that are not here. But I do think that it would behoove us to have a discussion to understand what is going on, and so that we are all, so we as a board can present to the community what we view and where the lines are, and what's acceptable and what's not. Because there is going to be continued pressure, I believe, for the district to move in an SEL direction from the outside, not necessarily from the inside, but I believe that it would be, having a thorough conversation of it would be useful, and frankly would be in line with our responsibilities as a board. So, but I don't know if we're going to need more utility out of this meeting, but I would strongly recommend having a work session. I know we're piling things up, and we might as well, make it a full-time job for July, but or August. But I do think that it's we all I think everybody here is committed to providing the best education possible for Riverside. But we need to bring in other alternative views so at least we understand each other and can move forward, hopefully as a unified body in what Riverside is.
Mrs. Rossi, did you have something?
So interestingly, we talk about social emotional learning, and we talk about this program, Responsive Classroom, and it's my experience in the workplace that organizations all the time are trying to say we want our staff to have professional development, we want them to learn, we want them to grow, and in order to do that, we have to reach them where they are. It's the same thing that goes on in school, except I'm not a teacher teaching students. I'm a leader in my organization, like trying to develop my staff, and I could have 3 people doing the same job, and they all come from from a different place in life, and I have to recognize those things. I see it as the same type of thing that you're like, I'm trying to teach my managers how to approach different people and individuals and backgrounds and things that people come to the table with at work. We all bring baggage. Kids bring baggage to school. Employees bring baggage to work. We bring baggage to the board table. I mean, that's what I hear, that we're trying to give our staff professional development and how to deal with those kinds of issues and help children learn. It's no different than what I do at my job when I'm trying to develop my staff so that they can be better staff people. So I just want to say, like, I understand what you're saying, and it's not a matter of focusing on one word of equitable. It's focusing on, from my perspective, where is everybody? Because they're all in a different place, and we just need to be successful. And so,
Well, I think it's been focusing too, like on the whole child. I have not talked to a teacher yet in this district that has not said that they felt that they didn't have a more successful year this year because of this professional development. They felt closer to their kids, they felt like they knew their students better, that it was extremely valuable. They're not doing anything
The
wrong.
social and emotional competencies include cooperation, assertiveness, responsibility, empathy, and self-control. And the academic competencies are academic mindset, perseverance, learning strategies, and academic behaviors. One thing I've learned in being in the district for such a long time is if something is happening in the classroom that shouldn't, I typically hear about it rather quickly. And I haven't had any issues.
Yeah, Superintendent Kalis, if you recall, when I did the presentation at the curriculum meeting, empathy and a lot of the other positive words were included in the presentation from a group that said they were doing wonderful things for kids. If you remember what the name of that group was, it was a satanic group. So using words and how they're used and how they're presented, that's all good to sell something. But what's the goal and where did it come from? I mean, this whole CRT and SEL program came out of the Frankfurt out of the institute, out of Germany, and it's Marxist. So if we look at the origins of it, the Alice Bailey woman that had a good part to do with the development of all these programs says she got her information from spirits, from dead people. So I think we need to know what we're bringing in to the school and to the kids, and I think we need to take a closer look at that.
I understand. I understand that, but also understand, and I don't want to get into a huge debate here over this, but the information that you gave us, only one sheet was from Responsive Classroom. The other ones were from Castle, Better Lesson, Reimagining Integration, Diverse and Equitable Schools. That was out of Shaker Heights, I believe, runs that program. We don't. Center for Responsive Schools, Center for Responsive Schools, Better Lesson, that was Mentor uses that program from what I understand. Better Lesson again, the Equity Collaborative. I haven't even heard of these different places. It's not Responsive Classroom. The only one we got from Responsive Classroom out of all that information was from Margie Dorhurst. She was a consulting teacher and curriculum and instructional designer for Responsive Classroom, and they put a webinar posted to their website. And it was how to continue to be an effective teacher while teaching virtually.
Do you not have the first 3 pages from Responsive Classroom that named equity 20 times?
I have all the training material right here. I don't know what's
No,
coming
the first
to-
3 pages in that presentation were from the Responsive Classroom.
I'm talking about this one here.
I'd have to look at it again, but it's from the Responsive Classroom website. There were 3 pages. And we can talk about that in the work session, because we're certainly not going to solve that problem here. But I am working hard to remove this from the district, and will continue to do so until it's removed.
So I guess I would ask, we have a lot of information you gave us that does not have sites. I have no idea where this came from. So again, trying to be open-minded and research what you've given me. I have nothing to research.
Well, I think
here.
the Satanic Temple, you could Google that and find them immediately.
But I mean, I think it's responsible. Can you send us the sources? Because I think that's responsible for us, for us
So
to have.
you would like
even
the
though we don't-
sources from each of the papers
Yeah,
that
if it's
were in the
not here.
presentation?
Correct, if it's
I
not
can do that
here.
for you. I'll do that work for you. I'll get that for you.
And again, I think when you look at this, cooperation, assertiveness, responsibility, empathy, self-control, I mean, those aren't bad behaviors.
It all sounds good, right?
And I guess that's more for the topic, but yeah, if you could send us the sources, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Sure.
And I think a working session is definitely needed so that we can,
We definitely need a work session, because there are elements here on the surface that does sound like a reasonable way forward, but I'm not sure that is the end all, that's the end of where they are. Everything, certainly my exposure in 11 years of being on the board and previous exposure as a student, nothing ever stays the same, right? It's made the comment that education is very trendy, and that where we are today is definitely not where people want to be 5 years from now. And sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad. So we have a snapshot here, but what's the trajectory? And that's what we need to look at as well, is what the trajectory is, and is that positive or not? And so we need to as a board, I think we need to understand all angles. You can disagree with it, but I think that it is important for all perspectives to be fully aired, so that, you know, agree or not, it's an understanding over agreement, perhaps.
But we do understand that there's nothing to remove. It was professional development. There's no curriculum to remove.
It is-
But there's not. I mean, like, you can say,
As a board, we approve that. As a
we
board,
approved
could
the
potentially remove
PD,
it.
but it's not curriculum. It was simply professional development for our teachers to use
I-
tools that they learned to teach, so you
I
could.
understand.
No, but I guess my question is, what do you remove at that point? You'd say, what? So pretend you didn't hear it? Don't tell kids that they should be empathetic? Like, what are we removing? Because
Perhaps there are
it's
other-
not curriculum.
Perhaps there are other programs that we could look at that would provide similar outcomes as to where Castle and Responsive Classroom is today, but perhaps we have more confidence that they will remain on those topics going forward. We need to have the conversation. I get it. We have differences of opinions, and we may have to agree to disagree, but it is, I do believe it's important for us to have a full conversation on this topic so that you know, we know where we are and we can figure out how to move forward.
I mean, I get it. I guess my confusion is that 4 of us approved it before.
I did,
Four of us
and
sitting
I-
here.
And I regret my vote. I will tell you, I regret my vote. I did vote in favor of it. I should have done more research on it. I did not. It's my bad. But I regret my vote, but I absolutely did vote to bring it in. But if I could do it again, I would have done more research. And pox on me. Pox on me for not doing that up front.
I think, again, I would love to hear from parents too.
And
I
the
think
teachers
it'd be
that are
very
actually
important to
teaching
hear
it.
from our parents and our teaching,
Yeah.
our staff. Correct. So, one more doodle poll.
When do we want to do this, though? So we have to, if we're going to get teachers and parents, then we've got to,
Is there any training scheduled, upcoming training scheduled, other professional development in regards to this?
In regards, we would do some supportive stuff in August, yes. I have not planned that yet, so that has not yet been planned, but yes, we would support teachers in doing morning meetings and how they're working through advisory so that we stay current. I mean, I don't ever want to do a one and done professional development because then it doesn't become part of your practice. So, and I'm not sure either how I should prepare for the work session. So I don't know if like you're handling other work sessions, you would want to send me questions or concerns that you have, and I could answer them. I'm happy to do that. I don't know how to prove that something doesn't exist.
Right.
I mean, how do you know unicorns don't exist? Somebody somewhere has said they have seen a unicorn, but I can't prove to you that a unicorn doesn't exist. So I don't know how to prove to you what the trajectory of something that we don't have the intent of. I don't know how to do that.
Right.
So that's where I'm stuck as the director of curriculum, coming from a place where I want students to be the best that they can be, our teachers to be as supported as they can be. I don't know how to prove that that is not happening.
So here's and I apologize, I was hoping that we'd just get to the point where we would move this into a work session, because that's where most of it needs to be held, in my opinion. But this is the background information on where these elements come from, as Mr. Official talked about. They come from the Frankfurt School, and it is designed to ultimately undermine the foundations of Western society. So I'm not done. You can kind of. So this is the point, is that we can bring a lot of evidence that the people who Antonio Gramsci was an Italian, and he helped identify ways forward and develop the basic plan. There are Herbert Marcuse. They all have as their goal the ultimate demise of Western civilization. We are not there yet. We are different. I believe that we are different as Riverside. But it is absolutely critical that we have a full understanding, and where I was going to go is that in the education circle, there is nothing but an echo chamber. There is no diversity of thought, in my opinion. Everybody's of one political persuasion. Everybody's there is no point and counterpoint. There is no dynamic. So frankly, that leaves it to the board to bring a counter opinion to the table to be discussed. And that's what we're doing. We may be in a great position to do that. We may be inadequately doing that. But it is clear that if you look at academics in general, if you look at the education programs specifically, you know, I recently saw, and I can provide this for our work session, that engineering was and this is at college level, the engineering program had a 1.6 to 1 ratio of one party to the next, and that was the lowest. If you went into psychology, if you went into the social sciences and other things, it was like 60 to 1. There is no debate in these environments. It is important because that is an environment that is not reflective of society as a whole. So we, as the board, need to be that sanity check. We need to bring things in. Again, let me reiterate that it is I've been here for a long time, and I have interacted with you and Dr. Kalis for a long time, right? I have developed a level of trust with you, but there are some unfortunate things that are going on in our society, and I want to insulate Riverside from them. And we need to have a full discussion, and oftentimes people say, you know, I listen. I do try to listen. I try to understand perspectives. I ask that of you as well. So it may not sway you, but it's food for thought. So that's all I would ask, is that the same listening that has been demonstrated be demonstrated by all. Let's see what's going on.
So I just want to respond to that. So the demise of Western civilization is being brought about by teaching students, and I'm just going to say people in general, because we do this at my job as well, teaching people to learn how to take initiative, to take responsibility and motivate themselves to take action, to see and recognize other states of mind, to ability to recognize and regulate their own thoughts and emotions. I'm sorry, but that to me doesn't cause the demise of Western civilization. To me, those are good things. I'm just putting that out there. I just cannot, in my, maybe my small brain and feeble brain, I cannot figure out where those dots are being connected, and that's all.
Then let's have a work session, let's have a discussion, and maybe we can educate you.
That would be super awesome. I would like to be educated on it. But
Happy to do it.
What about the timing of this? So, again, there is a possibility that there would be some discussion of it in August, you said? Dr. Malacher, sorry.
I call sympathizer, but no, I'm kidding. So there is I would typically, yes, build that into the professional development for the beginning of the year to get them back into the mindset, because it's things that we expect them to do. So I don't know. I also don't, I don't know how to get ready for a work session. I don't know what you want from me.
So again, I think questions should come to Dr. Malacher so she can figure out what she needs to prepare. I'll be glad to work with you to see if there's,
Okay.
if you have any suggestions to help her try to prepare. I'd be glad to.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know how much help I'll be, but I'll try.
If there's information that you would like everyone to read, much like Mr. Fischel brought an article to the programs committee, if you provide that to me, I would like to read. Again, very good exchange, and I'm kind of talking to you, Mr. Hack, because we have done this a lot of years. I think we've had a very good exchange of information. So if there's something that you need me to read, to understand, to provide an article or information to me or to the board, I would like to be included in that.
And I guess I would just have to make sure sources are on it,
Yeah,
so we can go in.
no, I think that can be done, and we need to have a well-rounded conversation, but it is important for the board to be a sanity check on different things, and we may or may not change direction, but at least everybody should walk away with hopefully more informed on where things are at. But yeah, I definitely can provide that. And there are some resources that perhaps can be brought to bear as well. And the other thing, since we're on the subject of things in general, I'm also, and this overlaps in my opinion, is there, I will send a link to everyone, the board and the administration. There's a documentary out there called The Creepy Line. It's on Netflix, and it talks about Google and how they are collecting data, which is a concern for me from a privacy perspective. And then there's the Social Dilemma, which is which is on Amazon Prime.
It's on Netflix, so I've seen it, yeah.
Okay, I didn't see it on.
Oh, you'll want to delete every single piece of social media and
Right.
stop
So I
your
think
phone.
that-
It's terrifying.
So if we're going to look at comprehensively at what we want to help our student population, there are many forces at work, right? Social media is a detriment in many ways. I think most of us have at least seen articles, you may not believe it, but you've seen articles that would indicate that. And certainly you're welcome to have your own opinion. But I think that this all kind of rolls into one, but there's more than enough evidence that Google is not a benign player, and we are using Chromebooks and Chrome as our browser, and that information, I believe, is being collected on on everybody here. People, staff, everybody who uses Chrome is there. So I think I would kind of roll that into a discussion as well, because I do not believe that we need to come to terms with where we're at. We may or may not change, but perhaps we will move with a keener eye and perhaps a little bit more skeptically into future iterations.
So I want to build up what you're saying there when you just said that we may or may not change. And I want to remind the board members too that if Mr. Fischel made a comment that he will not stop until this is gone, that if we do this board's work session and 3 people or 4 people say that this program and this professional development they feel is good, that's the will of the board, and we move on. Like this, we'll have this work session, but this is not going to be something that's rehashed over and over again. It doesn't. There are things that through the years that I have certainly not agreed on, and at some point you have. But if the will of the board is a certain way, this cannot be something that just because you're not going to stop. It does have to stop. We can't do this month after month. So
Kind of like what happened with the masks. We had the decision.
yes, and then we have to move on. This cannot be a.
I would advocate as well that we need to come to a conclusion, and it is the way it is.
Correct.
Until there's an next board elected. So, and that's just I think that makes sense, that we need to, we're gonna, I have described being on the school board as it's a very narrow funnel. We don't get together very often. There's always a ton of things that come up. And we need to come to a conclusion, and we need to, very quickly, our time is going to be absorbed, I believe, in monitoring different activities that go on with improving the facilities. So
Agreed. I just wanted to remind everyone that, this cannot be a long going. If it doesn't go your way, Mr. Fischel, it cannot be something that you don't stop, because it does have to stop. For any of us, either direction. When do we want to do this? Because I'll send out yet another Google poll.
So, Ms. Harden, are you suggesting that in school boards around Ohio, a topic is addressed once and not again?
I'm suggesting that in all my years on the board, that when we vote on something, we did not go back to the mask vote over and over and over again, even though Mrs. Grassi and Mr. Miley felt a different way. That sometimes there is something called the will of the board, that as a board, then we have to accept what we're doing and move on. It is not something that we can keep rehashing. We've got so much other business to do.
And speaking negatively about the school, the district, the staff, the administration, like we can't do that. In order to keep moving forward and working together, we have to move on and focus on, as Mr. Hack said, maybe it's the facilities, whatever we're trying to do to continue improvement.
Right, and are you saying that if there's new information that's not to be brought up in a board meeting, that?
No, this is
it's
a year
all
later.
It's
No,
all
we're talking-
encompassing that it's been dealt with, and any new information is not permitted?
No, but we're saying, right, we approved this a year ago, we're going to talk about it again, but it doesn't mean that if we talk about it in August, we're going to talk about it again in September, and talk about it again in October. Like, at that point, whatever in either direction happens, it just has to stop for a while. We have a lot of other business to take care of. And more articles, in for any of us in either direction, won't matter. Like, we have to just continue to do the business of the board.
At the end of the day,
That's how we function.
the way I see that, and the way I can at least try and explain that to myself, is that we are not like legislators and always having our own opinions and getting to vote and having one, like, we are a board, and it ends up being one vote. It's
Right.
really just one vote, and it only takes 3 people to have that vote. And
Right,
so,
and our decision piece for the whole board, even when you don't agree with it at times, right?
because
You-
the board
you
has,
agree on masks,
right,
but
the
yet
board has one
that's how it
decision.
continues.
It's not each individually, we get to keep trying to make a different decision. If the board makes a decision, we have to hold on. That's the way it's
Respect it.
structured.
That's the way it's.
So I'm just asking again, is that a rule in the state of Ohio with all school boards, that a topic cannot be brought up again, or is that the way we've always done it here, so that's what we should continue to do?
Well, unless you would have absolutely new information that would change the course of what that decision was, then what would be the point?
Well, that's what I'm
of
saying, if
bringing
there's
it up
new
again?
information, that should probably be brought up.
Right, we just said that that's the case, that's what we're doing now, right? We just approved this a year ago, we're gonna talk about it again, but regardless.
I don't say that a month later, we would have different information, so
No.
we should talk about it again. I mean, if we
But
have this
it
work
could
session.
happen. We don't know.
So again, I think if there's new information that needs to be considered, we probably would take a look at it. But, I mean, it can't just be another article about what we've already talked about.
Oh, no.
It'd have to be something
No, I
different.
agree with that totally. I'm just saying, if there's new information, it's just logical, you might want to look at it.
Yeah. All right. We have finished with
New business as far as I know, is there anything
Well, when
else?
did we want to try to get this,
Oh, sorry, thank you.
so I can add another poll? We want to try to have 2 in August? We need to have, I mean, 'cause July, we're talking about, when you've got the meet, we don't have the meeting until 18th with, we're talking, what? Do we want to try to get one in July to discuss that? I don't know if that's enough time for Dr. Malacca to get information.
Wait, what, you want in July?
I'm asking, no, I'm asking, I'm
I
not
think we need to
saying.
give Dr. Malacca some time, like, to put together.
Well, I don't know what else to pull
I know.
together. I've given
know.
you what I think you need to know. So that's what I mean. I don't need any time. We can do it tomorrow, because I don't know what I'm getting ready. We can do it right now. I don't know. I feel like it's bringing information to the rest of the board and perhaps to me. I don't know what else that I need to present. The information that I think you need to have is in that packet that I gave you.
Again, I know I would love to hear from parents in
Okay?
the district. I think we've
All said, parents should be involved, so
this is a great time for us to have parents involved. I think we need to hear from our parents. I think we need to hear from our staff.
those are two things that come to mind to me.
And again, I asked, how would we contact the parents?
We'll figure that out. I mean, that's a practical piece
Yeah,
of it.
let me
figure that
think on it, and I'll let you guys know what, so you want parent input, you want staff input.
Yeah.
What else is it that you want to have happen at this work
I would
session?
love, from my understanding, because I have the material. I've looked through the material, and I'll be honest, at this point, I like what I'm seeing. So I guess what I would like to understand is really not overarching theory. What in this material is not good? I mean, I would like to hear that. What is wrong with what we're doing, right? Is one thing I would like to hear, and I would really love the sources. Sorry, I almost said citations, but sources for the material that you gave us previously. I know that's what I'm thinking about. I don't know anybody else.
And
I was in the
we-
curriculum meeting, I've read all this stuff, I've read and stepped through all that already, I don't,
would we include community members other than parents?
well, they wouldn't have been in the classroom to experience it.
So would we?
They're gonna have their ideas of what they've read in articles or online, we need to talk to people that actually experience what it's like in a
Would we have
classroom.
community members that are taxpayers, that are stakeholders involved in this, or do we want to
We'd
carve
have-
them out?
I think we'd have to have public participation.
So, okay, so again, that's not anything for me. That's people coming to, right now I'm just figuring out what I gotta do in order to get ready,
So,
so.
and as far as public participation goes though, like I do have a concern that people will try and stack the deck so that public participation and people come and they're only going to give one point of view. I have a problem with that, like, especially if they don't have any background or knowledge on what the program is, like,
Right, going off
I
of
don't know how
buzzwords and
helpful
things like
that
that.
is for me, like, I don't know, let me just make sure I'm getting it, I'm understanding this. We are having a work session at 5:30 before our next board meeting to talk about guns and that legislation. We are having a work session for social emotional learning and responsive classroom. We're having a work session for facility update. We're having a work session for board self-evaluation. I'm fine with all that. That's a lot. Are we doing this all in the next month? Like, or are we taking our time and doing this over the course of, like, through the end of December? Like, what are we expecting of ourselves? This is why I feel like having that
So what's
board,
priority?
the board, self-evaluation and having OSBA come in and give us the board policy the board handbook for ourselves, like what are our expectations? Like, what are our expectations of ourselves? How many meetings are we committing to? I just want to know, like, I just want to know, that's a lot. We've just discussed a lot of things.
Right, things should definitely come to a head. So.
Do we want to focus on one thing first? Should we do all of them at once? That's like, where are we putting our priorities right now?
So I believe that we should look at trying to double things up as much as possible. So we cannot have I think facilities is certainly the most recent thing that is at people's list, I believe, given the recent vote. I think that the first thing we should definitely do is make sure we have a work session on facilities on the books, which would probably need to be in early August.
Right,
Now-
and she's gonna put out a doodle poll for that, and we have 5:30 already set
For this.
for the guns in school and house.
Right, so that's two off the list.
Right.
So, and then we had the SEL, I'm sorry, what was the other?
Board self-evaluation.
I honestly think, I
That
mean,
was
again,
which one?
Yeah, can we double that up with something else?
I think HB 99, I mean, honestly, we sent out the form, if everybody takes a look at the form, it's really just filling in anything else. I mean, I didn't hear any objections to the original form that I provided last meeting, or the meeting before, I can't remember which one, but.
Right, that would just be a rubber stamp almost. right?
Correct, it's adding some details, based on like our strategic plan, that kind of thing, and I don't think it's a full hour.
So the 28th, before our next board meeting, will be House Bill 99, the self-evaluation. I personally, although I agree with the buildings being the forefront of everyone's minds, I think we have to have the responsive classroom discussion though prior to the buildings, because school will be starting again before we know it. And
And
no
we need to-
improvements on the schools are going to happen before school starts.
And we need to allow for the planning of professional development for the beginning of school.
For sure.
Yeah. So, you know, should we look at, say, the last week of July as having another meeting? I suspect that it would be, we've already double stacked the July meeting. So I'd be open to the end of
July 28th for the board meeting.
yeah, so I mean, we could, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I suspect are flexible enough for me that I mean, I can make myself available.
Well, do we want to send out the doodle poll? Because it's already 8:30, we've not even gotten beyond new business.
Like, right, I would
And I'll do that as soon
suggest-
as we get home. As
I
soon
would
as I get
suggest-
home, I'll send the doodle poll.
I
mean,
would
it's-
suggest you like let me.
Because we need to do a
schedule those
combination of
dates.
mornings and evenings and things like that and try to hash it out. Because, I mean, I can never do a Tuesday or Wednesday, ever, anymore. I'm on the west side every Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, sometimes Thursday, sometimes Friday. So I cannot ever do a Tuesday or Wednesday.
So we're saying, let's try to combine responsive classroom and facilities, or no?
No, I think we do responsive classroom on its own, because it's going to be long and drawn out. We do facilities another time after that, because we're not going to be, I mean, it's almost July. School starts in like, what, 7 weeks? Right? 7, 8 weeks, I mean, it's.
I'm not counting that.
Okay, but you know what I'm saying, I mean, it's, we all know that at the 4th of July, all of a sudden, it's like the summer goes.
August 25th is our first day of the class.
I would suggest that
Did I just hear
the
Yeah, we haven't.
responsive classroom be sometime in July before our board meeting, because otherwise we're not
Okay.
recognizing the fact that administration has to plan for some things prior to the first day of school, and that would not be fair, I don't think, so.
Okay, so I'll look at some dates the week of the 11th and the 18th for responsive classroom.
Thank you. And in August, facilities.
I'm sorry, you're talking about the week of the 11th of July?
Yes, for responsive classroom work session.
So I am actually committed all week that week.
The 11th and the week of the 11th and the 18th?
The 18th would be open, but the week of the 11th is,
Okay.
is, would
No
not be
problem,
good.
yeah, okay. I'll send some stuff out then just for the week of the 18th and see what we can get.
Terrific.
Would anyone be open to, in the past, we even did like a Saturday morning every now and then? We used to do Saturday, remember? We used to,
Yep.
Tom, we did Saturday morning early.
Yeah, I'm good as long as we're not, I mean, all of our campaign is planned for the year,
Yeah.
so I can't.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, no Saturdays then, no problem.
I'm open to Saturdays, but I do have a commitment on some of the Saturdays.
All right, well, I will put a whole bunch of choices, and we'll find it. We managed it for the facility tours, we'll manage it for this as well.
I know that your schedules are the most
No,
important.
no, we'll include.
No, you
Plus,
obviously do.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, no. You gotta be there.
Oh,
I know.
really?
Yeah, don't worry.
Thank you.
Yep, I got you.
No, it's here, there it is. All right, are we good for the new business?
Please.
Figuring out time? Perfect. All right. Right, next is our Board of Education Committee and Liaison Reports. Superintendent's Business Advisory, we did not have a meeting this past month. Mr. Fischel, the Curriculum and Programming Committee or Alumni Association.
Yes, there was a Hall of Fame induction ceremony dinner that was June 18th, and it went very, very well. And our own Dr. Chris Bassage was inducted and had a wonderful reception speech. And Mary Jane and did a wonderful job, as did Kathy Colville, of being the Masters of Ceremony. And other people were also inducted. Dr. Michael Dingeldine, Stephanie Levin Graff, Dr. Peter A. Lilback, Colonel Christopher J. Sacco, Dr. Amy Bartholomew Pep, Jason Cavell, who I believe was not there, and Karen Berry, of course, was not there. So her husband did the reception speech, and it was all very well done. So there is a golf outing and a duck race coming up for the Alumni Association, with details to come at a later date. We've already announced some of that, but it'll be announced again. For curriculum, we had a meeting, and Cheryl Lanning explained some of the items that she deals with in her job description, and educated us a little bit more on some of those items. And as far as the curriculum goes, I'm looking to see if we can find a way to improve, especially some of our math scores, and understand there's going to be an audit, a study done that will take a year to get the results from that. And so I'm looking to see if we can find a way to gather some more information during that time. So we have another curriculum meeting on August 4th, I believe, August 4th at 7:30. And that's curriculum and alumni.
Any questions?
The curriculum audit was done last year. Mr. Hack, you might remember that so the audit is complete. What I presented at the last meeting was the plan for moving forward, how we're going to work with teachers, how they're going to start to look at curriculum, how we're going to identify where our gaps are, and building common assessments over the course of the next year. So the audit has been completed. It was completed last year. We went over those results. The board was presented with all of those. So what we discussed was the plan next year for starting to work on those areas where we found the weakness.
So there's not another audit coming up?
No, there's not another audit.
Okay.
We've that's done and over with. So that's what we'll do moving forward is act on the results that we have back.
So thank you for that. So it's not an audit, it's just a program to see if we can get results.
Yes, so starting to use that information, that data that was collected through the audit, working with teachers, identifying the gaps, and then starting to build common assessments and monitoring progress, working towards where are our weak areas and how can we get there.
So you'll be working with each individual building, departments, things like that?
Yeah,
trying to
more
figure out what the
department
plan is?
grade level subject area rather than building. Because
Okay.
we'll want all second grade English language arts teachers to work together. Fourth grade math teachers will work together. So we'll be working in departments, subject areas kind of that way to try to get better.
Okay, so you guys are already kind of action planning is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, Buildings and Grounds and Operations Committee and Legislative Liaison, Mr. Hack.
All right, thank you very much. So we do have the summer cleaning program working. Some of you who have been paying attention to the Riverside School Board over the years, every summer we bring in some students to do some extra deep cleaning, and that is underway. The last I knew, we had a total of 6 employees summer program. Were you able to grow that at all?
7.
There we go. We had 7. So a lot of when we did the tours, we got to see some of the deep cleaning that they were doing in a number of the buildings. So that is moving forward. You may remember as well that we had the boiler at Lamouth that died, I think, back in March. We were able to get through the school year with a portable boiler, but we are installing a permanent boiler for Lamouth, and that should be done. I think the work starts next week, and then it should be done by the end of July. We're doing some testing of the boiler to make sure it's good to go, but we should hopefully have a new boiler in place for next winter at Lamouth. A lot of work on floors. The gym floor, which we did happen to see on our tour, is magnificent. And there's a lot of work being done in the cafeterias at John R. especially in the floor, to create a new surface. there as well, pulling up some tile and then putting down so the floor will be uniform in John R. And there's something else I was going to say. I know, it was Buckeye. So Buckeye has a terrazzo floor. They're bringing in a machine to grind off all the layers of wax and other issues. And they're putting down a space age. Of course, that sounds kind of old, but a high tech, that sounds kind of old too. Some super duper ultra good stuff that lasts forever, apparently. That will be put on the floors, which will reduce the maintenance for Buckeye. And I believe that potentially that would be elsewhere in the district where we have terrazzo floors. But we're experimenting with Buckeye, and that is underway and should be done over the summer and be ready for the fall. And anyway, we covered many things. It was a pretty long and in-depth meeting, but I think those are pretty much the main things that I have. Mrs. Grassi, is there anything else that sticks out in your mind?
No, what sticks out in my mind is that in 1 hour, I've only been on buildings and grounds since the beginning of this year. I've done it many years ago previously, but in 1 hour, we seem to cover a whole lot of data, and I just want to commend Rich for being able to put this information together so that we can get through it expediently in the hour that it takes that we sit and have the meeting. It's just.
I'm not so convinced about that floor wax.
But it's.
It'll last forever.
He told us. We have it. It's being recorded forever. He said so.
And I for one, I just appreciate the fact that you come with all the data prepared and we have all the information and we can whiz through a whole lot of stuff in 1 hour of time, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So.
And Dr. Kalis, if the floor doesn't work, we'll give him a toothbrush to take it all up.
The caveat, Mr. Hack, was that if it's properly maintained, which we will do as long as it's still
As long as you're here. As long as you're here.
You'd be up there at 1 o'clock in the morning, fixing the pantry.
Yeah, but so just to put a cap on it, we did get out to see the buildings, and they really, the rooms that have been hit by the dig lane that are done really looked pretty spectacular. So as we methodically go through, we're going to be in really good shape for the start in August, and accolades to Mr. Arlesic and his crew and everyone else. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Great. Mrs. Harden, Policy Committee and Booster Organization.
We've not had a policy meeting, but we do need to, do we have contact information for Mr. Hack and I to work on the board member?
It was on one of the emails I forwarded.
Oh, was it?
I
Okay, I
highlighted
gotta find it again.
Yeah.
Okay. To get in touch with them. So we'll get that started, and then, I don't know what the boosters have going on this summer. I imagine they're all just kind of getting ready to get another school year started.
And tonight, you'll adopt
The policies, which Mrs. Harden and I, as the policy committee, reviewed. Yeah.
I just, sorry, maybe when I was paying attention, I was searching the email I sent you to make sure that they sent it.
All right. Thank you. Update from the superintendent.
I was trying to fix that.
Right. For trouble? Need my dad.
There you go. Thank you. The law and school board policy require Ohio superintendents to provide bullying incident data to the board, particularly the board president, on a semi-annual basis, one at the end of the first semester and one at the end of the second semester at the end of the year. And everybody can pass that. Those are redacted instances of bullying. I also pulled some data just for the board to look at of the past 4 years and what the numbers look like. If you have any questions, let me know. You can email me if you want some more information on that. Something really remarkable other than the fact that I believe I don't have a copy of it. I think 10th grade was a little high this year. All right. The
The idea for Riverside Campus PTA has gained traction. This idea was discussed among a group of parents this past spring with the hope to help provide opportunities for our students and also improve school climate at campus. As you know, we had a PFC years ago, which was a parent-faculty club, which was like a PTA. The parent-faculty club helped just provide opportunities for the students. But what I've noticed over the years is that as students move into the upper grades, interest in these types of organizations seem to decrease. Even talking to other administrators around the area, everyone would love to have a PTA or a PTO at the secondary level. We have it for a long time. But right now, we just had a meeting the other day on the 27th, which was Monday, with interested parents. And it looks like it's gaining some traction in that we might have one early fall. We had representatives from the Ohio PTA attend this meeting, facilitated. One was Chris May and the other one was Barb Varley. They presented information on how to start maintaining a school PTA. Mr. Mayor was going to attend, he couldn't because he was out of town, but he's going to be working with these parent leaders to make sure that we move forward with the PTA. I know there was some discussion about having some information about the strategic plan. We had a meeting scheduled. Patty Kozlow, she came ill on that day, and there was some discussion about going ahead with just Lisa Riegel doing the meeting, and we said, no, we wanted Patty there as well. So we rescheduled the meeting for July 15th, and it's my hope that I'll have more information for the board at our July 28th meeting. Basically, the goal of this next meeting is to set up the steps for the focus areas and getting a strategy together for engaging the community and participation in serving on those committees. Just a couple personnel updates. As our board knows, our middle school principal will be on leave for the duration of the 2022-2023 school year. We're transferring Mr. Lewis, who's the assistant principal from the high school, to become the interim at Duluth, which opens one principal position at the high school. And there will be also another position also open once the board approves our student services special education supervisor recommendation on the board. Jen Westbrook will be taking a position in the central office, replacing some of the left in our district. Most of everything else, certified teaching and classified searches are ongoing. We have, you'll see several recommendations on the board agenda for hiring. We've been very busy as it relates to staffing at this time of the year. And one of the things we try to do is think, well, how can we start getting some interest in some of the positions that are available? And I know we put it on the marquee, word of mouth, but we were short last year, just like a lot of other companies in even in the community across the nation. We have a website there. People are interested in seeking some positions, potential employment in our district. But what we're going to do, what we're planning to do, is have a Riverside Job Fair on Tuesday, July 19th, from 10 to 2 at the Riverside Fieldhouse. These are just to name a few openings in terms of custodial and maintenance positions, latchkey, food service, any positions in a lot of our classified areas will be available. And we want people to know in the community that if they're interested, come July 19th from 10 to 2. Bring any material you would like us to see. Obviously, any person that we eventually hire is going to have to be vetted and be suitable to work in the school. But we have regular permanent positions available as well as substitute positions. And these are on-site interviews that we're going to have at the Fieldhouse. We really could use bus drivers. So if someone is interested, there may be an opportunity to do some training as well with their CDL so we can drive buses. Just wanted the board to know what the enrollment looks like right now. At the end of the last day of school this year, our enrollment was 4,256. As you can see right now, we have 3,967. I want you to know that I don't expect a decline in our enrollment. And for that reason, if you look at the kindergarten number totals right now, we only have 156. For some reason, over the years, parents just seem to wait kind of last minute before they enroll their children in kindergarten. I'm sorry. To give you an idea, at the last day of school this year, we had 328 kindergartners enrolled. I'm just using that one grade as an example, because that's the most impactful one when you look at total enrollment for, the end of the year as compared to where we are right now, second of July.
And this counts like anybody who's carried over open enrollment. I know we shut down open enrollment, those
yeah.
ones that have
This
been
one,
here.
it's fluid. I
Okay.
mean, I bet you right now, if we look at the numbers we have, it might be slightly different.
There were 16 more kindergartners late today,
Okay.
so.
So there you
So
go.
what's that?
There's some discussion also about school districts for anticipating that their divisions and regions were, their sports teams were going to change. I just wanted the board to know that Riverside High School is not affected by any of these changes, nor should it affect any of our scheduling. All sports here at Riverside are Division I, with the exception of football, which is Division II. Also, I don't want to get into great detail about it, but I don't want the board to think I'm holding on to I got a couple of anonymous letters. I think they're from the same person. Someone is alleging some recruiting violations from another district with a couple of our students. What we have here, we just have the information that's here. We've heard some things out in the community. I just want everybody to know if there's any discussion out in the community, we have reported it to the Ohio High School Athletic Association to look further into it. So the person that thinks we're not doing anything, we're not getting on the website saying, hey, I'm doing it in a public meeting. But let them know that they're the ones that do investigate those sorts of things, not necessarily the school. One is addressed to the board, and one was addressed to me. So I'm going to just pass it around, you guys can read it, and then when you're done, you give it back to me, and I'll file it somewhere. All right? Just think there's quite a buzz out there, so I figured if you heard about something, you'd know it. We're going to do our ALICE training with our staff. The ALICE training is alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. It's in collaboration with the Lake County Sheriff's Department. The staff will participate in the training on the following dates. August 22nd will be elementary teachers and transportation. August 23rd is high school and middle school teachers. And the 24th is classified supplemental staff. I'm also working with Deputy Sheriff Sherwood and Captain Rizzo for the planning of a second full-time resource officer in our district. We're talking about what our needs are, and they are looking to try to find somebody right now. Again, they're having some difficulty also trying to find staff. They're for the great job that they do, they're spread very thinly. I sent the board a copy for school safety and security audit. I know we've been talking a lot about security lately. The recent events that have occurred in our country, it might not be a bad idea to start thinking about some of these things and getting some input from an expert. One such expert is a fellow named Ken Trump. He's not related to the president as far as I know. But he's a nationally known school safety expert with more than 30 years of experience. He's actually based out of Cleveland, and his company is the National School Safety and Security Services. And what they do is they come in and they look at the existing security. They give you an assessment or an audit. They also help you plan for emergencies. They provide training. They are also a crisis school safety communication expert, and he's also involved with litigation as a consultant, and also provides expert witness testimony. This particular guy, you can see anytime that there's something like this type of subject on TV, it's always Ken Trump seeming to be the one that the people are talking to. And just a couple of days ago, there was an article in the Associated Press that was in the News Herald, and they were quoting Ken Trump. But he's co-authored and authored 3 books, 5 book chapters, and more than 450 articles on school safety. And he's been invited 4 times to the United States Congress as a witness. these are just some of the interviews that he has done in the past. I mean, they're so extensive, I don't spend time reading all of them, but they're big time media outlets. I did send the proposal to the board with the amount of what it would cost to have him come in and do this audit. Maybe it's something that the board would want to have further discussion about what our needs are in executive session today as well. But I thought I would put at least have information on here if you'd like to take a look.
Jim, question on that? I read through the information that you had forwarded, and I know we had a discussion about this, and I had questioned how much actual physical training there is. And I'm still not seeing in their program that there's much actual physical training. There's a lot of talking training. And my concern is that with just about anything, I played a lot of sports, if you're not practicing something over and over again, you quickly forget it. And you revert back to your automatic response if you don't actually have that training over and over again. And so I wonder if you could possibly talk with him to see if he could expand that program to where they can offer more physical training with people to try and create a habit during a moment of fear.
Yeah, we do some of that physical training with the sheriff's department. We have our lockdown drills. Maybe having some discussion with some of the experts, maybe like Ken or even some representatives from the sheriff's department, would give us a better idea of what times of day also that we do it. You know, the convenient thing is to have some of our drills when there isn't lunch. Well, that isn't to say something might not happen during the lunch period. The teachers they're very good about going over some of the emergency protocols in the case of an emergency situation. But there's also the difference between kids that are young and kids that are old. Even with kids that are old, it's easy to say, you know, first thing is try to just go, leave. You know, elementary kids, when you're dealing with 5-year-olds, you just can't do that. So we've been working with what does that look like in the case of an emergency. And we have some protocols in place, but we could do better. I know we can do better. But my suggestion, my recommendation is at least get someone in with an extra set of eyes. Because I'm not a school safety expert. I mean, I know a little bit being in the position that I am, just because of by virtue of that position. But I haven't studied it like some of these experts. And I thought it might not be a bad idea to have someone come in and look at our policies, look at our practices, look at our infrastructure, and see what we can do about improving, you know, those things to make it a better place, a safer place here. But you know, it's just like anything else. You're just trying to get better every day. In the case of safety, it's a top priority.
Does he come in with could he offer us a proposal of what that might look like for us and cost and all that?
I'm pretty sure we could probably tailor it the way we want to.
Right.
So
We haven't had further conversations with him.
I've been a little back and forth. He's asked any updates and everything else. I told him I was going to talk to the board today.
And he's coming in to assess. He's not coming in to say, he's coming in to kind of assess and tell us what he thinks.
Give us recommendations of what we can do to make these better.
Right.
And so I was talking with another gentleman who has a similar type company, and he was a national security and intelligence person who's now retired, and they have a company. And I think I mentioned this to you, that they've gone into schools in other states, and they've been able to reduce the fighting and the violence by up to 40%. And it's twice the program of money, and there's a lot more training followed up from the initial talking. And so whomever we choose, my preference is one person's opinion, but my preference is to have more training. And I'll just give an example. This may not be a good correlation, but it's just an example. People that buy all kinds of different programs, whether it's real estate programs or whatever, it's a 2% rule. All these people go in, they spend a lot of money, and they listen and they watch, and then they don't do it. And it's a 2% program where 2% of the people will do it, and 98% don't do it because they haven't practiced it, they haven't had the training. And I would just really push for more actual physical time of training. So That's my input.
Understood.
Again, I think he's coming in assessing and giving recommendations. I don't think, so the recommendation might be, you definitely need X, Y, Z, right?
That's what I'm saying, for $20,000, you can get that from anybody. We can get that from the sheriff's department.
That concludes my report.
Thank you. So that brings us to Treasurer's Report and Committee update. So Finance, Audit, and Personnel Committee and Strategic Plan Liaison, Mrs. Grassi.
Yep, so we had a Finance and Personnel Committee meeting on June 23rd at 8 a.m. We covered personnel first. I would talk about the job fair, but Dr. Kalis already did that, so that's a really great thing that we're doing. You know, there's some turnover in some of our departments, and so the job fair is hopefully going to take care of some of those needs that we have in some of our departments. We have a lot of interviews going on right now, good candidate pools for some of our positions that are probably actually now at this point on the agenda already, because that meeting was last week. And then we talked about all board agenda items. We were up to, item 00 in today's meeting agenda, which is a lot of things, but I just wanted to review that a lot of that is year-end closing items that are required to be done. And the fact that we're having this meeting on June 30th is good for Mr. Platko because we're closing out the year-end. June 30th is the fiscal year-end. And a lot of these items on here are then purchase orders and whatnot for the upcoming school year. So there's those things. We have the temporary appropriations for the upcoming school year and the finalization of the appropriations for the current school year. We have grant acceptances. This is all standard things that have to be approved as we head into the next school year. And the fact that we're having this meeting again on June 30th, we can already do a lot of those things because otherwise we won't be waiting until July to do some of that, which is also fine. We have fund transfers and advances for the year-end close, so those things are on the agenda as well. We talked about the sheriff's office contract and our SRO contracts and the individuals that we're going to be having out at our front entrance here for the upcoming school year, and that we are going to add those individuals to, not the SROs, but the individuals sitting out here with now employees of the district, which is really, really helpful for them because the whole initiative behind that was trying to make sure that they are treated fairly as employees and that they actually have health care coverage and benefits that they were not being provided previously. And so I think that's a step in a positive direction so that we can get some people here that look at this as a job. This is it's a full-time job. So I think that's really a great thing. We talked about redoing our personnel handbook and that there's a meeting with Dan coming up soon, July 6th, right? That we'll review that information for the policy handbook or the personnel handbook updates that you guys come up with. We'll review that at the July finance meeting, and that we are looking at some pay increases and doing an MOU for some of our other positions in the classified section of our district so that we can attract more individuals to those positions. And other than that is all I have. I don't have a strategic plan update because we haven't had a meeting with Patty yet, so. Lots of agenda items.
If I could add just one thing to that. I know that Ms. Grassi covered this, but a detail, I was sensitive to this because I actually had conversations with some of the cafeteria workers, and they were really, really strongly looking for a raise and feeling they were really underpaid. So I think we were adding $2.70 or 75 cents an hour to their pay. Yeah, and so I just want to say that I think that was very good and be helpful to at least move them into a zone to where they might feel more comfortable.
Right, so if I have that right, we have $2.75 for special needs and cafeteria employees and 75 cents for all others. Job classification. So that will hopefully get us some additional candidates for those positions that we struggle to fill sometimes.
And that stuff will be on July's agenda for different discussion.
Thank you. An update from the treasurer.
I have a fairly short update this month, just because getting the year wrapped up, as I saw, there's 41 items on the agenda.
Thank you. Everyone, thanks.
And My World 2023 starts tomorrow, so it's an exciting time. Last month I wanted to give an update on the Discovery Tour situation, and apparently the hearing that happened that day was delayed to June 15th, where Joseph Chipley pled guilty to 18 counts, including embezzling, fraud, money laundering from Discovery Tours, $600,000 he stole from the company. He's sentenced on November 29th, and will be ordered to pay restitution determined at that time. He's looking at only 30 to 37 months in prison, which I thought was interesting because it's $200,000 a year basically. And I look at that, that's probably a bad way to look at it. I'm thinking still that kind of money. I think 30 to 37 months is a pretty good sentence. And the other exciting thing I have on tonight's agenda under personnel is approval of an assistant treasurer, the position created. Michael Petrucci is sitting behind me here. Just wanted to provide a little information about Mike. He'll be the new assistant treasurer starting on August 1st. He comes to us from Kenston Local Schools, where he's been assistant treasurer for the past 3 years. Prior to that, he has worked for South Euclid Schools for 20 years in the same position. During that 20 years at South Euclid Schools, he also did double duty and served as treasurer of Fairport nights and weekends during that time for 5 years. I actually had the pleasure of auditing Mike probably about 12 years ago when I was a state auditor. Mike has a school treasurer's license from the Health Department of Education.
Was he as honored to have you come audit him?
I might have wrong numbers up, I don't remember. Mike has a school treasurer's license from the Ohio Department of Education and a bachelor's degree from National University, where he majored in school treasurer and finance. Mike lives locally in Lake County, one house outside of the Riverside Local School District. His neighbor actually lives in Riverside. He lives on Curve, and his house is in Perry, and that's in Riverside. And his wife's a teacher at Hayfield Schools. And anything else you want to add to that?
No, I just want thank you ahead of time for the opportunity. Look forward to working with Mr. Thacker and the rest of the treasurer's office and the rest of the team. We're ready to go. Get the school year started.
Welcome.
Oh, really? Thank you.
We'll see you at the next finance meeting.
He's looking forward to it.
Sure.
She is.
That's a
All right, thank you. All right, now it's time for public comment. So anyone wishing to address the Board of Education will be recognized by the board president. Speakers are requested to identify themselves and their topic. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Any public participation?
Good evening. First of all, I'm Darrell Dunlap, Concord, graduate, 1967, proud graduate. First of all, I want to thank each and every one of you for being a board member. I know the pay is tremendous, but you all are doing a great service. I want to tell you that I've heard a lot of comments of a coach wanting to leave here because there wasn't community support, because the levy didn't pass. I want to give you a little history about the community. The community field house has that name because it was built by the community. The organization, the Riverside Community Athletic Foundation, had to pay $1 for the land so that the legal responsibility on that property was theirs. A $1 million project was built by the community at no cost to the Board of Education, $1 million. Part of the reason I'm telling you this story is because you need to reinforce there's a great history for Riverside, a wonderful positive attitude about the school. You, as leaders of the community, need to get that positive attitude going more and more. I signed, along with 5 of my friends, a $600,000 personal note to make that happen. I'm bragging a little bit, but I'm bragging because I had great friends that said if anybody backed out of that loan, they were in big trouble, they were going to get their butts kicked. I bring this up to tell you that for the first time in my life, I voted no on the levy. Too much for too long at the wrong time. It's not a defeat for you, it's just a setback. Now, what I'm going to encourage you to do is, as a team, come together and make something happen in the place of that levy. You can do things that aren't that expensive, that will be very good for the school. All of our goals are the same. We want a great education for our children, and we want great facilities for them to be in. One thing that I have noticed from the board tonight is there's a certain amount of friction. Please eliminate that friction. You're all in it together for one reason, the kids. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you, but this is a great positive place, and you still can make great positive things happen, even though the levy didn't pass. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Charles Caldwell. I live in Leroy Township, and I want to make a comment before she started cranking that thing up. 2 brief statements. Number one, I've never been to a board meeting. I have never come here to do anything. I'm ashamed to say that, but I have to say that's the truth. But about 1.5 years ago, I decided I better start looking at things because I didn't like things that I was hearing, and I don't need to believe just rumors and hearsay. The second thing is I echo my good friend's comment. What I did for a living, I did by looking at people, watching their body language and watching their tones of voice and watching how they interacted. And I'm telling you, if you will watch this video tonight, it's not coming to you. And you don't want to look that way. You're all good people. You all are doing something wonderful for the community, but you shouldn't do what you shouldn't interact the way you're interacting. It sends a bad message to the yahoos like myself that come to a meeting and go, wow, this is what this is always about. All right, now with my 3 minutes here. First of all, I have 51 years in public government and 24 years as an adjunct professor at Lakeland Community College. I have 5 family members that are teachers, so I'm not ignorant to what is going on in the school systems and what happens. More importantly, I understand what it takes to pass levies. In the job that I did, I've worked on many political levies, many levies for different programs. And the important thing is having a public trust, and you can't violate that public trust. It's important. I also believe that government has to be a little more run like a business. We have a product that we sell. You do, we, community. And that product is education. And you sell that product to a consumer, the parents and the students that you educate. And you need to do that and keep in mind in a cost-productive manner. I'm in favor of good schools. I think they're very important, community-wise, nationwide, like roads, parks, police, and fire levies. We're all fighting for the taxpayers' dollars, and there's only so many of them out there. And yours is very important. I also stand for saving this school. I want to make that clear. My brother graduated, I believe, in the 2nd class from out of this school. All my sisters and brothers went here. All my family members, my children, my wife, their mom, everybody has gone here out of our family, and now my grandchildren. So it's a very important thing that this school is there and it be saved. We owe this to the history and to the responsibility.
I'm sorry, that's time.
Can we hear him finish his comments, please?
We
waited 2 hours while you guys talked. Could you give us
I'm
more
sorry,
than just
Mr. Weiss,
3
this
minutes,
is a meeting
please?
of the board, and again, we say 3 minutes. I apologize, but we try to keep it equal for everybody, so I do apologize.
It's fine, it's fine. I understand.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yes, in the back, I'm sorry.
John Reed, Painesville Township. I've attended a few of these. I attend meetings all over the country, maybe DC, Columbus, or wherever. And I agree, there's other fellow Riverside graduates, as I am. And I personally think this school isn't what it used to be. Our kids are not getting educated correct. When people make a statement, well, this happens in our classrooms, I don't think there's anybody in this room that knows exactly what is said by a teacher or a student in these classrooms. Like the sheriff always says, we can't be everywhere all the time. And we need eyes and ears. And just like now, the sheriff can't get, not just our sheriff, across the country, you can't get law enforcement officers. I just read this article where we can't get members for the 3 armed forces. Nobody wants to sign up to go to our military now. So they say it's worse. It's as bad as it was. I think in 73 the draft stopped, or what, 70, 73, somewhere in there. It's the lowest there as far as the people who want to join our services. Something's going on. And in my opinion, schools are part of the problem. I mean, we can't blame, we can't say, oh, it doesn't happen, it happens there, but not in my school. No, it's the other schools. Nobody can say that. I can honestly say, do I think there's problems there at Riverside? Yes, sadly I do, and they need to be corrected. And also, OSBA was mentioned. I called them, and I had a lengthy conversation with the Ohio State Board, and I talked to board members there also. And he was telling me about the NSBA. They no longer have a contract with them, and you know what the NSBA did. On 10/25 of 21, they terminated the contract. Now the consortium of state school board associations, they're with them now. And I'm doing more and find out what our board members supposed to be doing as far as classes. Because the OSBA may go to the NSBA at the time, getting help on the curriculum and so forth. We used to have a rifle club here. No one ever got shot. We never had deputies walking the hallways and everything else. We never had that when we graduated. Something's going on here. So all I'm asking the 5 of you, like they say, the buck stops here. You're the ones that are elected to this position. You're the bosses. What happens and what doesn't happen in this school is all on you, and I mentioned this at the last meeting. Number one is to educate our children. Like this one psychologist said, if you give me 4 years of a young child's brain, and they said we can teach them whatever we want. Our kids are here to learn, reading, writing, and arithmetic, and sadly, in my opinion, our schools aren't doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Dennis Keeney, Leroy Township. First, I have to say I wholeheartedly agree with Mr. Dunlap and what Mr. Caldwell said. They're absolutely spot on with that. I don't know his name, but I have to agree with everything he said too. Now, with that, I have to say that with the facilities and the renovation of this, I'm a taxpayer. My taxpayer dollars are important. I'm also a retired landscape architect and a soon-to-be retired commercial real estate appraiser. Understand value, understand design. This building has not reached anywhere near its physical life. Economic life maybe, but that's why every so often you have to go through a building and redo it. And you'll get many, many more years out of it. The right approach, I think, is what they're suggesting. You have to take it piecemeal. Windows are one big thing. Heating and air conditioning are another. This building has all kinds of possibilities for a brand new 50 years of life. If you look at it in a comprehensive, step-by-step way and make sure that the right questions are asked along the way. So please, get together, because a new school building will not be done. You're going to trade concrete block walls for concrete block walls. That's all you're going to get. And I'd be 107 years old when that levy retired. And why should I pay that kind of money? For the increase in our taxes takes so much buying power out of the community, you just don't understand it. But it does, and it's important for us to go along the steps it needs to rejuvenate this structure and the other structures. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes.
Amy Zurin, Concord resident. I've got 3 children in the school. spending, I think the spending needs to be looked on a top-down approach. So when I hear that the community sent a very strong message, basically 3-to-1, in favor of building, not buying new buildings. I agree with somebody, I think it was just yourself, that said there's no community support, or the community trust isn't there. I think I heard community trust. When I hear of spending $3,100 to put a manual together for this board, I say no. Pull the policies together yourself, put a staple of them, and pass them out. That's how simple it is. The Ohio State School Board Association has that manual. Duties of a board member, you can get it for free. But I will tell you, they've already paid a membership to the Ohio State School Board Association. So this is another $3,100 on top of it. The second is new buildings versus repairs. Every year, I get you. You need to maintain your house. You need to maintain every building. This building didn't get maintained. Some of the buildings didn't get maintained as good as they should have. So the community said, should we give you a brand new building that you're not going to maintain and let's see what you're going to do with it? No, the community sent a message 3-to-1. And it's hard because I lived in a former community that built the new schools. And I understand the plus, they look good, and I understand the minus is the taxes are so high, they're a burden for the community. The third, I've come to speak to this again, and I'm going to stress it because I've heard it 2 times here. There's division on this board, and if you watch this video, you're not going to be happy with yourself. What I've seen is cutting board members off. What I saw is eye-rolling, nonverbal comments, sighs, and one board member said under their mouth, please. It's just not how you want to present to the community. It's not. The fourth is parents need to know what the work sessions are. I'm a parent of 3 in the district. I work 2 jobs. My husband works 2 jobs. So announce what dates the work sessions are and what the topic is. And put that on a blast to the community if you want the community to hear. And I will tell you, social and emotional learning and CRT is an important topic for the parents. Involve them, and there's money coming down the pipe to teach it. So, and special stakeholders will want it to be taught, but the parents might not.
Thank you. Any other? Yes, sir.
I'm Bob Zames. I'm a 40-plus year resident of Concord Township inside the Riverside school system. I came here to listen tonight, and I heard a lot of things. But I also came here to congratulate Mr. Fischel for becoming elected to the board. In my opinion, he's bringing a breath of fresh air to this board, long needed, in my opinion. Secondly, his opposition to CRT, critical race theory. His opposition to that, I applaud. I'm adamantly opposed to CRT and any iterations involved with CRT. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yes, sir.
I wanted to, first of all, thank Mr. Kalos and Mr. Arlesic for their tours that they gave. In the past month and a half, Mr. Fischel and I have spent over 50 hours. We've gone through every classroom in Riverside, as well as all the common areas in Riverside, and we intend to do that in John R. Williams as well. Done a lot of documentation, discovered many, many things. One thing I'd like to say, in the few contacts I've had with Mr. Arlesic, I cannot be more impressed with the depth of his knowledge, not only about this building, having only been here about a year and a half, but also his experience throughout his career in building maintenance. And I would very strongly suggest that the board take heed of anything that he suggests to you, and particularly anything he tells you not to do, okay? That being said, I also recognize that Mr. Arlesic is extremely busy with the limited staff that he does have running this entire district, and I agree with Mr. Fischel and Mr. Hack that an owner's representative is necessary to help to try to define the scope of what needs to be done to improve Riverside and prolong its usefulness as well as other buildings, okay? And like Mr. Dunlap and Mr. Caldwell and Mr. Keeney, I am for saving this school and continuing to improve it, okay? I want to move on to the social emotional learning, okay? As a parent, I send my children here for 3 reasons. Number 1, to learn academics, to support entry into university level education and a technical degree program. Number 2, to participate in team sports and develop their physical and team building abilities so they can become better citizens. And then finally, to socialize with their peers, because I think it's very important for young people to be together, learn how to become adults together, okay? I do not support social emotional learning, critical race theory, or any boiled down derivative thereof, okay? Yes, I do agree with Mrs. Malagra, every child should be lifted up. No child should be bullied. All children should feel safe and in a productive learning environment. But that's not what social emotional learning is about. Social emotional learning is forever tainted with the fingerprint of critical race theory. It was designed by very much leftist people, Marxist people, who want to change our culture and want to undermine the Judeo-Christian value system and the constitutional support that a good society has for its community and for the United States of America. Okay? I absolutely am completely against social emotional learning, and I implore the board to remove that from the curriculum at the earliest possible time. Again, it's divisive, it's tainted, it distorts and denies the truth. So it has to go. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Yeah, if I could. Doug Laconis. I live in Concord Township, had 3 kids that go to school here. First off, I want to say, and I mean this sincerely, I want to say thank you to the board, because you got, all 5 of you are up there, and you have a really, really, really hard job. And we're all looking down on you, and obviously, the community can watch on the video, and they're going to, a lot of them watch after the fact, so you have a hard job. So I appreciate what you're doing. The one thing in regard to facilities I just want to mention, and I'll just put it out there, I'll say it out loud. I voted for the levy, and my wife voted for the levy. But if I'm being honest, I 100% knew it wasn't going to pass. Because people like this gentleman who had voted for every levy, and I talked to people out in the community that said, I voted for every levy in the past, but I'm not going to vote for this one. So now that we're past that, and CUNY, is said decisively we're not going to build a new building, at least right now. And quite honestly, it's not a good time to build for a lot of different reasons. Building materials have doubled in the last 12 months, blah, blah, blah. But, let's just make sure we're working together. There does seem to be a lot of divisiveness. We want to try and just get past that because we're working together for the kids, right? So, second thing I just want to say really quick, and this is a quick story, I'm going to have to say it fast, but is 17 years ago, a client of mine, a very successful businessman that happened to be from the Middle East, said to me, he said, Doug, I've been here in the United States now for about 20 years. He said, you know what shocked me? He says, how absolutely, positively naive and uninformed and unawake the people of the United States are to the actual realities of the world. And he said, let me ask you 3 questions, Doug. Because I, of course, said, I'm aware of the actual realities of the world. What are you talking about? He asked me 3 questions. I gave the answers right away because I knew the answers, right? And he said, Doug, you made my point. You just answered 3 questions. All 3 answers you gave are 100% wrong. So he started me on a path 17 years ago to actually find out what the actual realities of the world are. And they're not and certain people on this board say certain things that shock people. And they scare people. And they make them think, oh, well, that's just crazy talk. But in reality, when you know, you know. When you know the actual realities of the world, things that might sound crazy to certain people, actually aren't. And so what I would say is that there are certain people on this board that are awake to the realities of the world, and there are certain people on this board that are not. So I would just ask that, for instance, Tom, you looked at something and you voted for it, and then now when you're actually awake to the realities of the world, you would change your mind. That's what I would ask everybody on the board, to look at things with an open mind and use some critical thinking.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Right.
That brings us to our consent agenda portion of the meeting tonight. So our first one is finance and audit. Mrs. Grassi?
Sure, I'd like to make a motion to approve the items listed on the finance and audit consent agenda as recommended by the treasurer, items A through O. Can I have a second?
Second.
Pick here. Is there any discussion on any of the items that are in here again?
Yeah, so if I could, I believe it's item I, the blanket purchase orders. So, I'm probably catching you flat-footed, but the Santa Solutions,
They do, they have our maintenance, the cleaning chemicals, and equipment that,
okay, terrific. And so I know we have some utility services that are provided by Painesville. Is that water and electric?
We have a nice variety throughout our district. So we have some buildings that are on Hazel City Electric, some are on Lumen Company, some are on Dominion Gas, some are on, one's on Northeast Ohio Gas. We have Aqua Ohio in some schools. We have Lake County Department of Utilities. We have sewer in most places. It's a variety of all.
Okay. All right, terrific. Sorry, you paying attention?
It's been 6 years and I'm still trying to figure out which ones it is. It's a little confusing.
Terrific. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I had a better sense of what some of them were. Some of them were obvious, and others were not immediately obvious to me. Thank you very much.
Is there any other discussion on any of these items? I noticed we have the grant acceptances for the upcoming year for our special ed services.
Do you want to do donations?
Oh, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, we would like to thank Robert Regal to the Riverside Volleyball. I would assume that's the Booster Club, $53.90, and $14,000 from the Parkside PTO and Parkside Elementary School for grade level instruction materials. And so thank you to those individuals and organizations. That's a nice donation from Parkside PTO, so much appreciated. If there's no other discussion, Mr. Platko, can you call the roll, please?
Tom Hack?
Aye.
Scott Fishel?
Aye.
Belinda Grassi?
Aye.
Jennifer Harden?
Aye.
Lori Kniske?
Aye. Motion carried. That brings us to consent agenda for personnel. Mrs. Grassi?
Sure, we have a motion to approve the items listed on the personnel consent agenda as recommended by the superintendent, items A through F. May I have a second?
Second.
And again, there's a lot of information on here for hires and a lot of year-end things that are going on for Mr. Platko's office and contracts and whatnot, so. Does anyone have any discussion on those items? All right, well then, can you call the roll, Mr. Platko?
Scott Fishel?
Aye.
Belinda Grassi?
Aye.
Jennifer Harden?
Aye.
Lori Kniske?
Aye.
Tom Hack?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, consent agenda for curriculum and programming.
Make a motion to approve the items listed on the curriculum and programming consent agenda as recommended by the superintendent. Those are items A through D. Is there any discussion? I'm sorry. Is there any discussion?
I see the band is planning their trip to Florida.
Yeah, they had to reschedule. We already approved it.
Yeah.
They had to adjust dates.
Is this Disney?
Yes, it is.
Awesome.
They were leaving a day early, coming a day back.
Yeah, they should get 1 day.
It's been a while since they've
Yeah.
gone, so that's great.
Any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, please take it up.
Belinda Grassi?
Aye.
Jennifer Harden?
Aye.
Lori Kniske?
Aye.
Tom Hack?
Aye.
Scott Fishel?
Aye.
Motion carried. Buildings and grounds and operations, Mr. Hack.
Motion to approve the items listed on the buildings and grounds consent agenda, items B through E, as recommended by the superintendent. May I have a second, please?
A second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? All right. Mr. Blackwell, can you call the roll?
Jennifer Harden?
Aye.
Lori Kniske?
Aye.
Tom Hack?
Aye.
Scott Fishel?
Aye.
Belinda Grassi?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to our Board of Education update.
think there's been a lot of update.
Any additional?
One comment. It's kind of interesting that you said that the band about having gone in a long time. Kids are really excited about the prospect of getting back to normal. So we're happy to see that we're taking these trips.
I really hope we do Chicago for the next grade, because if I have to hear Chicago in my house again, I'm gonna. Are they starting to talk about those programs too, like the trips? Good.
So just to echo what was just said, is my son was in the regiment, and they marched down Main Street in Disney, and he said it was one of the highlights of his high school career, so I definitely understand.
Great.
Any other board discussion? All right. So that takes us to the executive session. So recommendation to move to executive session at 9:31 p.m.
Second.
1 second, to discuss personnel matters, appointment and/or employment, compensation, and security arrangements.
Second.
And Mr. Flacco, can you call the roll?
Rick Nisky.
Aye.
Tom Heck.
Aye.
Scott Fishel.
Aye.
Linda Grassi.
Aye.
Joe Carter.
Aye.
Motion carried.